Well, you know, with the new
Understand.
structure,
Understand.
It would not hurt my feelings.
not mine
Go
either.
ahead and just allow
Oh,
her to,
I'm
just
home
pay you out.
about 2 months a year.
Yeah,
I'm
me
at
too.
Christmas.
I'm ready.
And then that would allow them to go ahead and get the
There's a guy
restructure in
there, we
place.
got light and stuff, you can see everything.
Yeah, and they requested,
Yeah.
I think it's good.
And I'm accurate on the,
But also help us
7 courses high,
justify
it's
a little
30
more
feet and 2 18-foots.
Well, that's one
in
of,
salary.
You know, like a half a box. It's my
but
living
since
room.
she's announced today, you can't not pay her, you have to go ahead and pay her through that day.
Oh, yeah.
4 foot and rain.
I'd say, you know, you go off for
No,
Christmas,
it's dry stacked. on
Just
the
not, just
concrete,
don't worry about it. We got you covered.
well, if we can convince her that, if there's nothing else, it would save us from having to give her a W-2 next year.
Correct. They have-
Just pay it out and then, you know.
It just
That's
has-
right.
it
Just do it all in one year.
solid
Be done.
block, you know, the 4 by 8 by 16.
And use it, because we restructured it.
Yep.
We just make a clean
Yep.
start for the year.
Yep, makes it easy to go ahead and have it.
No,
Very
that's what I'm
good,
saying.
Mr. Chairman.
I need to put a report in the block.
And Mr. Adams,
That was just kind of bothered me. Keep looking around when y'all say Mr. Adams, it confuses me.
Look at it.
Just call it the king of South.
well, I do call you Denny every once in a while, you know, it's like, because I've heard that so long in my lifetime, you know what I mean?
I'm more comfortable with
I'm
that.
coming back, I have my doctor's appointment the 21st. Yeah.
And I'm
I
really
just
glad
need
that
to
we
get
can
them price,
sort of
you know,
talk back
within the
and
next
forth.
week or so.
That was
Yeah,
like,
we can schedule
one of
it
the
whenever,
previous,
you know, it's not rushed,
Commissioner
you know.
told me that he never could ride in the commission parade all of them together, because nobody on the lights.
It's my living room.
Well, you know, that's what, I mean, forgive me, but at some point, I recognize that we're gonna have disagreement. Absolutely. But I believe that with the things that we have in common, that we all have to put our pants and shoes on and stuff like that, that we can walk away from the table as adults.
Oh, yes,
You
well,
know,
and the other thing is
So,
I like that, I like it because we have enough discussion, that most of the time we sort of reach some consensus before we all go. And that's what,
The thing I think gives us so much opportunity to do the right thing, to hear the right, have that discussion. There's nobody sitting up here with an agenda.
no.
The agenda for all of us is what's best for Madison.
Ain't no agenda, that mean I can go home?
they just call me when you have that.
Except for folks in here, we could,
I'm gonna get
in the metropolitan district.
Yeah, the metropolitan district is a totally different.
You can tell Derek's, you know, he's got his umbrella, so he's still living in that metropolitan world.
I don't know why he has such problems in his district is so small.
Yeah.
You know?
What you here for?
I think so. I got my mail on my mailbox. Y'all
got
take y'all
one
out, you jam it on the bottom, well, y'all wanna read?
Pretty much.
Anything y'all wanna read, you stick it up on the bottom.
Anything that looks like it's got to do with engineering or the state regulation on something, we give that to you.
Brian did let one slide over, we were down there working on the redistricting for the election. I really wanted him to draw me a map that had District 4 coming all the way down where it was, and then having a circle around GRP and a circle around CDBG. That was what we all just,
just put them all in there. There you go. There you
It
go.
sure was tempting. If I thought I wouldn't get anybody in trouble, I'd sure had a
The problem with those kind of things like that, somebody could come back and say, I want to see all the maps that Joe did right here, under open record request. Who was here that day?
Well, I'll tell you what, fellas, I'll swap my one cigarette meal for any two y'all got.
There we go. I'm out of relation to zoning.
I got y'all so fancy tonight.
What are we doing?
A
Can
surprise.
I bring it closer so I can see it?
We can turn it for you.
What?
This is a Mr. Clerk, request.
Yeah, I like
Remember you
it.
asked that?
But the only thing is you got over, I can't see it.
Well, he'll turn it, we just got to push it over out of the way.
Are you, Alan, are you the operator? No.
No.
Oh, computer? Are you, well, then are you Vanna? Are you
He's running up there like a shark.
Apparently, I don't need to get a day job because,
Definitely not the.
I like this. I like this.
That's the one for Katie uses down the courtroom.
Cool.
Miss Baxter, this evening.
I'm good, how are you?
Go get all your gingerbread houses built.
We did, and it was a lot of fun. The house smells great.
Hello, Frank. How are you
Definitely
today?
fun.
Like you planning on us being a marathon here tonight.
Well, look, he comes prepared. Only thing, I need to drink that much water, but if I did, we'd have to have a refill without it.
Yeah. That's what everybody at school was doing.
Yeah.
Try to keep up all day. I don't always.
Is that a full gallon?
It's a gallon.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's what my doctors want me to drink, and I try to do that every day, but I don't have a big, I need to get me one. Where do you find that?
Amazon.
Amazon? Just need
I think I got some gallon coolers down at the shop right there. If y'all would think I'd be trying to buy you boots for something, I could probably bring you some.
Well, that'd be good. I build me a little thing and I'll set it up right next to my desk and give me some colors. Have to keep everybody else off of it.
So which one did y'all pick out?
We got one of those hot and cold things right there, close to my.
Water.
Yeah. I have a little office, but my office is out in the middle of the plant. And in the very back there, especially close to the dock, because all the incoming parts and all that's where they come from. So, most time, I'm sitting back there at my desk, when I'm at my desk, I try to get up and go out and set them up. But they open them dock doors. There's one big door. Here lately, I got so many deliveries from FedEx, DHL, and all that kind of stuff. That thing stays up all the time. Other than one, when it's cold, you about freeze to death. So the other day I told him, I said, look, I told my boss, I said, it's cold back here. And I said, I can't sometimes get enough clothing. So the other day he come by and he had this pair of coveralls, had cat on it and all that. He said, I got these especially for you. I said, well, I appreciate it.
How you feeling?
I said, if you get me another set, I'll take one home and keep them washed. He said, yeah, you want to take one home so you have it to wear around the house.
So the overhead lights, street lights, yeah.
It's a little down in the dumps.
Tired, man.
Tired. I get that way sometimes. You know, I was that way when I got here, and then I went home. I took a little nap.
Bless you, my friend. Naps are my friend. I don't get them very often, but I sure like them when I get them. My daddy would swear by a cat nap, that's what he called it. I'm gonna take a little cat nap.
Well, since all my stuff going on, it's one of them things that's regular. When I come home, then I'll get up and I feel like doing something. It's about time Cindy gets home.
But, how is all that going?
Good.
Good.
I go for my big rounds of tests January the 6th. Up there it's like 2 days. I get scanned everywhere and all that. So if all that turns out good, then he said I probably wouldn't have to get that done, but maybe every 6 months, which has been every 3 months now. Then I'd be good.
Show I'm proud of that. That's what I thought we'd wear. Where I thought we'd wear.
Been there for a while, it's all right.
Well, you know,
Relatives up there keeping us there.
even as far away as I am, I get called about it.
Them fur and them again.
I'll be honest with you, I'm so tired of that place up there, I don't know what to do.
Who's that?
Secretly,
I mean, the meal plan.
We had someone here last week.
Yeah.
I just wish it was.
Had it to do over again, I think, which we can't control what was done 10 years ago, we could have measured that water.
Then,
We could have measured yesterday. We done it all the time with the sewer pond, and you measure every 25 feet with a drop rope. Just measure the depth of the water, and you graph it out. And or, 2021 fishing standards, on the graphs has changed, it'll map that lake for you. You just put the trolling motor on.
you still got to know your flow, because you have to
True,
allow
but you know your
waste
water
210,
volume. You would know if you're over 100 cubic.
Well, that was the thing about it. I mean, when I met with the folks from EPD and the DNR over there, I mean, the first thing we did was went up to the upper end of it to look at the flow in. And I mean, the first thing out of the guy's mouth, he said, man, I would have approved this as a water source.
Oh, no, yeah.
And he said, that's why it never was a permit applied for. They knew it wouldn't be approved.
Like everything else today, we are fixing old problems. It's just an old problem, and we'll fix it.
Just takes a while, just takes a
It does.
little while. Do them right.
we need to be out of fixing bids into repair bids.
I like it.
We don't just fix things.
Well, when they do,
Just
figure out where we're gonna put
Well,
the
no.
senior center. That's
Well,
what we need to figure
we
out.
need to,
It's,
we need to get in there.
you heard the last email.
No, I haven't heard of it. I heard that.
I proposed a swap, a property swap. Adjacent to the homestead property, I had 15 acres on the backside that we owned. That would join the home place. And I said, hey, let's swap. Plus, it'll make your home place bigger. Got the email resolution or the answer to that yesterday, and it said, or Friday. And it says, we're not interested. We think that's landfill. I'm like, it's not landfill. I was like, well, if the landfill ever catches on fire, burn it. What? So in other words, they're out. They don't know negotiation. The one in Texas, no negotiation whatsoever. Basically said,
I was smiling.
please don't contact us.
Yeah. And it was sort of like, yeah, hey there, but what I was looking at. Map situation. Hey, I'm telling you.
We're gonna have good intentions.
I run my mouth off about it.
I think I'm gonna.
So we're actually
punt,
getting in there
come
into
above what the senior center is now.
what century are we?
Piece of property.
I get confused now. Are we,
See if
that
we
would
can't
work.
get it.
is this the?
That would work. And it's still level ground.
All right, you may have just creeped into the 21st.
Yeah, might-
Very conducive to what we're going to do about access to that soccer fields there too.
I guess it is.
You know what, and honestly, we're
Roger's
gonna. I was gonna asphalt off that parking lot right here. I'll put it right on site. I'm just saying, I mean, hey, sir.
Howdy, howdy.
Brother Zach.
You know, I got to sit by the prettiest little girl chunking out that candy. It was fun, let me tell you. She didn't want to throw out the rainbow colored one. She wanted to keep those.
She grabbed every single one of them, she wanted to hold on to them.
Well, you know, during the ball game was bad, you know, it was really bad. But I had my grandkids, and so Ellie, she don't really care. So in the last part of it, she just started doing gymnastics right in front of the TV. And I thought for a minute, I sort of said, well, I'll be irritated. Then I got thinking about it. I said, I'll just watch Ellie, and then I won't have to watch that. And I got smiling and carrying on. And after the game, we went and ate Mexican food, and
All was well.
all was well.
How about that? Life went on.
Life went on.
Sun came up, sun went down. I think it was
You
just
know, one of
setting
the
the stage
strange
for a
things-
national championship revenue generator.
I think it is. You know, but seriously,
I'm worried about Kirby's contract. Couldn't sleep a wink.
you know, seriously though, there's a guy at work that he was so upset. He lives up in Toccoa. He had to go off on top of the mountain over at Curry Mountain and sit for a while. Stayed almost all night, like sulking over this thing. He told me all about it, and I said, Son, I believe you need to go get some help.
Give my wife's card, he needs some help.
Really, I mean, seriously, it scared me. I wonder about it.
I'm not a football analyst, I watch most of Georgia games, they've been susceptible to the long pass and the
Oh,
early
yeah,
offense
every game.
all year, but just hadn't been against anybody that could do it.
And they actually changed the defense some, and they had a new guy back there. And he made some really good plays, and he made some really bad.
And the offense looked confused all right, it looked like put a bunch of people, I hadn't seen them reading the wrist all season long, they just.
As I told Mike
They
today
got
at
them off
lunch,
balance.
as I told Mike today at lunch, that was played out like a Hollywood script. And the reason is because had we had won, we'd have to play Alabama again, and you're not gonna beat them 2 times in 1 year. We lost on purpose.
Well, see, yeah, Alabama's been out there.
I don't know about on purpose.
Well, couldn't look that bad on All right.
Ready to go. It brings pretty good answers.
They never did at the house to speak of.
When I was leaving about 2:30, it was coming down pretty good, but it broke off about, Hull.
All right. I ain't got one more. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Madison County Board of Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session, December 6, 2021, 6 p.m. I'm going to start off with the chairman's report. I'll try to make it brief. The Coleman Parade this past weekend, Saturday, in my opinion, I would speak for the Board of Commissioners on this, was a huge success for everyone. There are several more events that'll be held on December 11th in Madison County. The City of Danielsville's Christmas celebration will be from 4 to 8, downtown tree lighting at 7 p.m., festivals throughout the event, the festivities throughout the event. Second annual Kingston Greens Christmas Luminaries is from 5:30 to 8:30 on Kingston Road, Colbert, Georgia. And Santa will be coming to the Colbert Volunteer Fire Department from 6 to 9 on the 11th. Stop by and enjoy some hot chocolate with the Colbert Volunteer Fire Department. Don't forget, letters to Santa are due on December 10th at the Madison County Rec Department. There's plenty of information out there on Facebook, Zach, if you need it. It's 248 Danielsville, P.O. Box 248, Danielsville, Georgia. The Madison County Library is holding several holiday movie times and crafts during this event at the library. Please see the website for start times. Zach, most importantly, the message that this board and myself is trying to get out is it seems like we're starting to see a lot more turnout from the community, a lot more events being held. I know COVID's over, and I think along with the help of Anna Strickland and several city councils, this year to mark is probably the most I've seen for Christmas holidays. But we've had a lot this year in 2021, and I just want to thank the community for showing up to all these events. There's a lot of hard work goes into them. I appreciate everybody putting them on, and enough about that. Other updates, 2021 LMEG paving and patching is now complete. I know there's been a lot of people been waiting patiently on the patching process from our washouts, but they are 100% completed. I think this was done prior to last week. That would have been around December.
It was Thanksgiving week.
Thanksgiving weekend.
Thanksgiving week.
Alan, personally, thank you for overseeing that. I know you were the middleman between us and the rain and the weather paving people, but good job staying on it and getting it done before the end of the year as I asked. Thank you very much. Barwick Hill Road will have a replacement pipe tentatively delivered around December 17th. Due to the holidays, it may be after the first of the year, but know it's on order and know that it's coming. Tree clearing has been completed at the Diamond Hill Ballpark. If any of y'all have not seen that, we are fixing to start the upgrades there to make that lower field ADA compliant. The guys at the road department done a phenomenal job with that. soon as weather breaks again, we'll be building retaining walls and you'll start seeing dirt moved in over there. Good things coming for 2022 at Diamond Hill Ball Field. Big Brickyard extension off Brickyard Road is in progress. If any of y'all have not been by there, please ride by and look. This is a 0.12 of a mile dirt road. It was real dangerous. There's been several head-on collisions in that 0.12 of a mile. That road is being straightened out. Mostly, gentleman's name, property owner?
Wayne Melton.
Wayne Melton. Wayne Melton has some health issues right now, but Wayne cooperated 100% in giving up some of his property there to move that fence line in his pasture and straighten that road out. So most definitely thank Mr. Wayne Melton. If y'all get a chance to stop by and see him, or if you see him out somewhere, because we would not have been able to make this happen had it not been for his donation. The Comer EMS station perk test is complete. We are now waiting on the test results back. Once I have Alan and myself and Jody has spoke, and due to some sewer issues at Comer, nothing major, they felt it would be better to go on septic there, so we've asked for a perk test to be done. Strictly for everyone in attendance, I guess you could say, in the newspaper, Madison County has several job openings. P&Z administrator, building maintenance helper, part-time EMS staff, jailers, deputies, rec department staff, and groundskeepers, road department operators. Please see the county website for details. We've got a couple applications in, so we're probably going to extend the deadline on application, just so everyone knows. And that wraps it up for me. Hearing and actions on zoning matters.
There are none for the month of December.
Huh?
There are none for the month of December.
Okay. Old business, discuss road study survey presented by Mr. Chris Deals. Welcome, Chris.
All right,
Good to see you again, brother.
Good to see y'all. Good to see y'all.
There's a couple mayors that ain't quite here yet. I know Danielsville called and said he's stuck in traffic.
That's fine. I can discuss with some of them afterwards.
Okay.
On a few things if I can get done.
We put the traffic circle in.
Well, no, he come off 85, so I guess it's up on 441. He called and says, man, I'm in traffic.
Heard that.
Let's see, it'd be like last year, Perez and just.
All right, as Todd said, excuse me, I'm Chris Dills, used to work for Georgia DOT, retired almost a year now, believe it or not.
I guess who the mayor's here, y'all wanna get in better position to see the thing up here?
You can turn that TV a little bit, I think.
Yeah, you can probably turn it a little bit, or if they wanna move a little bit, I don't know.
And everything. Like I said, I work for Neil Schaefer. I work part-time for them. And also, I started my own company called PPT, which we'll talk about that a little bit later after the thing. But as far as for Neil Schaefer and the road rating that we got here, what this is the map you see here, this is a map of Greene County. Finished up Greene County's rating. We met with Byron Lombard. They are actually going to be putting SPLOSH on their agenda coming up, I think I don't know if it's this November or the following year. And he wanted a road rating done, so to see, one, where he was at, and two, to, let that be when starting talking to the public about T-SPLOSH, which y'all got y'all's pass, which is a great thing, and T-SPLOSH will help us with this when we implement this. And what you see here, like I said, this is a map of Greene County. Everything in blue is roads that rate between a 90 and 100. Everything that's in green rates from 80 to 89. Everything in a yellow or orange rates from a 70 to a 79, and anything in basically red is rates below a 70, which by DOT paces, that's a failing route, okay? So what you see here is talking to Martin County, and when we talked to him, what I see here is they had about 260, 270 centerline miles. Y'all have 457 centerline miles as far as paved routes, and what you see is paved routes. And when I did the rating, this is what we came up with, okay? And this is, when we do this rating for y'all, you'll get a map just like this with Madison County on it. And we'll color code it in similar colors. If you want something different, we can adjust that if you so desire. But I think if we kind of stay with the way the DOT rates their routes and with your LMIG and your T-Splosh, this will give you a good idea. It also helps you when it comes to when you're getting ready to put the roads out. You can use this rating to say, hey, this is where we stand. Okay, this is where we need to spend our money. Okay, but what I am going to tell you is the stuff in red is, like I said, it's failing. Okay, and I've wrote enough of Madison County to understand, and what I've seen with Allen and some other stuff I've done. You know, your map ain't gonna quite look like this. I think you're gonna have a little bit more red and yellow than maybe what you expect. Okay, but in a lot of cases, I see I see some really good stuff that's happened. And what this will do, like I said, it'll just it'll tell you where it's at. And when you get this, every time once we give it to you, you'll better go, and if you click on this particular road, what it will end up doing is telling you, okay, what the rating was. It'll give you some pictures, and I'll show you. But overall, it'll kind of show you and the citizens where you stand at, okay? And then as we start doing the different types of work, as Splosh kicks in, and as we do this, then a couple of years down the road, we can do another rating and make those changes as needed, okay? So like I said, but this is what you'll kind of end up with on that. So give me just 1 second here. Let me swap over to something else, kind of give you a little bit better idea of the rating itself. Okay, the rating itself, like I said, is calculated off the way DOT calculates their roads. And in here, you'll see, you'll have your road segments, you'll have pavement markings, crack sealing, rut depth, block cracking. All these things you see here is the things that I will be rating for that rating, okay? And just give you a little snapshot. And basically, like pavement markings, see if it'll open up. What I'll do is all I'll tell you is it's an excellent, good, fair, poor, or very poor in the rating, okay? That will help you with when we have, once we rate the roads and kind of see where your pavement markings are, that money that's out there that the DOT has for all system striping, which I've heard y'all had several of those, stuff like this will help us go after some of that money, okay? The DOT puts out $1 million a year for each district. You know, you want your share of that pie it don't cost you anything. We go in, we get the roads, we make a list, and we go over it. So this rating will help you do that. Block cracking and the load cracking is kind of the same thing. What I'll do is I'll go in and I'll evaluate it with deductions. And what this will do is as I evaluate it, it'll give me a percentage. I'll put a percentage in. And once I do that whole rating, then what will happen is down here at the very end here, you see this overall rating right there. Let me see if I can scoot it up just a fuzz. When I go through all those different things and put the different percentages in, like I said, it will come up with what you see there. It says overall rating is 100. That score will range anywhere from 100 to, could be 50s, could be 40s. You know, just depends on the road, how we rate the road. The next thing you see here is preservation treatment, and that's something we'll get talking to here in a few minutes about pavement preservation. And what I'll do is also with this thing is I'll go in, and as I rate the road and as I look at the road, I can put in up to 3 different treatments for that route, okay? And like I said, most of this is for pavement preservation. It kicks, what it does is it shows you what you need. And what I'll do is I've got prices set back in here, and what I'll do, it'll give you a per lane mile cost, okay, for what it will take to do those different type of treatments. and then it'll give you a lane cost at the very end, you know, depending on how many treatments I choose, it'll give you a cost at the very end to show you what that road, what it'll cost to do some type of, we're talking about pavement preservation now, okay? We're not talking about resurfacing the route or things like that. We're talking about pavement preservation. Because what I'm seeing is, as with DOT, when I started the ITB program back in 16, we need a lot of pavement preservation. The only way that we could get ahead of that was do pavement preservation. If you try to pave yourself out of it, it's not going to happen. Okay? There's just not enough funds there, and even with Splosh and your LMIG, it's going to get you a whole lot further than what you were by looking at the few numbers I've looked at, but it will get you down the road, and it will help you. So, and like I said, they'll end up giving you the overall cost right there, and then, like I said, and that's what you'll have. That's what the road rating is all about. It'll give you a really good idea of where you stand, kind of give you an average cost of what it's going to cost to take care of those roads, depending on what we need to do at that time of the rating. And like I said, it'll give you that map to show you where you need to spend your money, basically, or help you decide where you want to spend your money. So, you know, that's what that's all about on the road rating side. That's what it'll look like. That's how it's going to be done. Like I said, it's done off of PACES rating that was done by Georgia DOT. We used that rating when I was the asset manager down in District 2 for the last 5 years before I retired. And in there, I had 6,600 lane miles to maintain, okay? And at the time, my capital resurfacing budget for 6,600 lane miles was $25 million. Well, for $25 million, all we could do was pave about 150 lane miles a year for $25 million on state route resurfacing. Okay, so you see the numbers. Well, when we got our first ratings, from 16, when we got our ratings in, that was done basically similar to this, basically almost the same thing. When I got the ratings in, I looked and where we stood at, and so with the HB 170 money that passed back in 15, we started spending that money on, and what I had an $18 million maintenance budget. So I took the $25 million on resurfacing, I took the $18 million that was on the ITB on the maintenance side of the house, and I put those two to work, helping me. Well, when I started the maintenance preservation side, the first year, they gave us $7 million, and we spent $9 million, and then the years 17, 18, and 19, and even 20 was really when everything really kicked in. And at the time when we started, the road ratings, I had over a third of my routes in District 2 at the time were failing, okay? So I knew that capital resurfacing and resurfacing alone was not going to get me where I needed to go. So I started spending 10 to 12 million of the 18 million on pavement preservation. When I left at the end of 20 and the numbers for 20 came in, a buddy of mine called me who still has access to a lot of that, and he was looking at the numbers for District 2, and basically he told me that after they rated the roads and got all that back, I had 2 routes in the whole district out of 6,600 lane miles that were failing. That was it. That's where pavement preservation comes in and will help you. Believe me, been there, I've done it, I've seen it, and you know, numbers don't lie. That's just where we're at, and that's where, just in that short amount of time, in those 4 or 5 years, that's where we got to by using capital resurfacing, using the ITB on the maintenance side, on the capital, on the for pavement preservation, and also our in-house folks. They did work, you know, we had in-house maintenance folks that did a lot of work, crack sealing and patching and things like that. So, you know, that, all those things together helped us get to where we were. And that was my goal before I left there, kind of have a 5-year plan. That's kind of where I wanted to be, and basically hit it. So, but right before I left. So that was kind of good to know that what we put together really worked, and, you know, and all that. So it's, that was a really good thing there. Let's see, let me close that out. Let me go to, all right, this is the pavement preservation side of things.
Is that the video?
No, this ain't the video.
Okay.
You want me to show the video?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No, I just want to get them up here so they can see.
Yes, sir. And let me go through this slideshow real quick. See if we can get it a little bit bigger. Okay. Right here, what you see here is after the 5 years of pavement preservation that I did, this is, everything you kind of see here in yellow is a lot of different pavement preservation techniques. And what you see, this is a 4-year, 5-year average cost of what it was costing us to do the pavement preservation type techniques, okay? And it's like crack sealing. You know, when the average cost over those 4 years was around $2,800 a lane mile, okay? And crack sealing is one of those things. I know a lot of people say, why do you do it? Well, one, it's the cheapest, most effective way of keeping the roads that are in the good, going from good to bad. It's a good way to keep them in better shape, keep the moisture out, because that's what the freeze thaw that we have and things like that. That's one of those things that it just really helps you. Between crack sealing and patching, those are the two things that really help you there. And so it's just one of those deals. It's a good tool. Like I said, these are just averages. Okay. Right here, what I wanted to show you is like I said, 16 was a half of a year, so to speak. Really, not even a half a year, about 4 months worth of ITV money. But from 17 to 20, like I said, here is 4 years, and here's kind of like average cost. And what you see here is the like deep face patching and things. These are the average costs and the quantities that we put out for those physical years. And as you see, we started out, when we first started crack sealing, you know, we didn't have a really big quantity, we had a high price, okay? But then the next year, our quantity went up. These are lane miles, of course, okay? So we went from 397 lane miles to 659 to, let's see, let me make sure I follow it correctly, to almost 900. And then in fiscal year 20, we had done so much over those years that we started backing off a little bit. But as you can see, the pricing went down. And it's all about quantity, okay? With these contractors and stuff that we have, you know, it's all about quantity. It's all about the relationships you have with them and what you're doing there. So it's a good thing just to see that, you know, on a lot of cases, there's some things that, you know, stayed about the same depending on what you did year to year. Prices go up, prices go down. But for the most part, because of what we're putting out, our prices just kept steadily going down, which saved us money, which allowed us to do more pavement preservation and other things at the time. We had our budget, and usually every year, at the end of every year, my boss at the time, who was Jimmy Smith, who was the DE, he would come in and say, hey, I've got some extra money, can you spend it? We always had stuff sitting on the shelf ready to go. So that's what we done when it comes to that. And so and like I said, as the prices go down, the more quantity you can get, the more lane miles you can get. Okay, what I wanted to show you here is when we first started out in 16, okay, here was our road ratings, okay? And the state said this is for the different type of routes, which was critical, high, medium, and low. This is the numbers they want us to be at. Well, when we started out and we got these numbers, we looked and we said, okay, well, our critical and our high Our critical's good, so we're not going to have to spend a whole lot of money there. Our low is good. We don't have to spend a lot of money there because all we want to do is average a 79. We were 83, so, you know, we looked at that, and this is where the road rating is going to come into play, okay? But what we did see was the majority of our routes, which was the majority of our mileage between high and medium, those routes were not where we wanted them, right? So from 16, as you can see, to 17, there wasn't a whole lot of change. But then on our high priorities and our medium priorities, you can see that the pavement preservation techniques that we used, okay, during those years, you see the score started coming up, right? Because this is where we were lacking. So to get those scores as close to that as we could, that's where we spent the bulk of our money. And that's where the road rating is going to come into play, okay? We're going to look at it. We're going to take it. We're going to say, this is where the money needs to go, set a budget, and spend what we can spend to get whatever we choose to set on y'all's priority, where you want that, where you want your roads to be with the amount of money coming in. That's what I'm hoping to do for you is with the techniques and everything that we used in District 2 for pavement preservation, capital research and all that. Like I said, here's the numbers, and these numbers were done by a company called Pathways. It was the same process as what I'm doing. It was just done with a van. They went out and wrote it, and so there was no, because believe me, I had 5 different areas, and all 5 different guys rated the road differently. When you have one guy rating it, it ain't too bad. But with the vehicle, that's why I'm saying these numbers, because 17 was the first year we started riding the routes with that vehicle. So it wasn't nobody's opinion. It was a vehicle that was under the PACES rating, the way they set it up, and these are the scores that we got. So as you can see, it does work, okay?
One question.
Yes, sir.
I guess, as you rate those, and you talk about preservation, then I guess, look by the rating and what you see out there, then there are certain preservation techniques that are recommended, is that?
Yes, sir. That's, like I said, when I rate the road, I'll give you certain, whatever the rating is, I'll give you those techniques that I've used in the past for your routes, that when I look at once we get done, we look at the map, we see where the scores are at. Like I said, you're going to have it. Like I said, it won't tell you how much you need to spend for, and we can, but it won't tell you. I prefer to use that as a pavement preservation technique, and then the roads that we want to pave, we know what those are. We can see it, but we'll use this to, say, hey, this is where we need to be working at, and all that. Yes, sir. Okay, this was, right here this is just a little thing that shows you kind of a map of the different pricings and the life expectancy. This is off of a FHWA thing that kind of just shows you the different things. And what I've done was I put all the different, a regular hot mix overlay, a thin lift overlay, hot in place recycling, hot in place 1 inch with this was a hot in place 1 inch material with a surface treatment under it. This is a micro resurfacing single lift. This is what they call a cape seal, which is a micro and a chip seal together, just a plain chip seal, and then crack sealing. And basically this is, when you do these things, this is the average lifespan of those products, okay, is what that is. Like I said, it's the thing. What I did here is I just took, I just took certain roads, okay, and come up with, this is your conventional, okay. Here is, if you do nothing but pave, okay, if you do a wearing course and you do these 3 roads at the square yard price, well, this is what your price is, okay, at typical, as it says, conventional plant. I mean, it's basically paving everything. You're not doing any type of other pavement preservations. But when you come in and you do optimized plan and you do on the same three roads, once you look at the roads and you determine, yes, I can do a cape seal, or I need to do a hot in place overlay or a chip seal on the same roads. Well, on the same three roads in the same square yards, when you do a cape seal on one, you do a hot mix on another with a chip seal under it, and then just a regular chip seal because that's what the road allowed. Well, there's your savings. You go from $937,000 to $455,000, okay, by just using different techniques that work, okay? And what we're going to do is we're not going to put anything on the road that we feel whatever the road needs is that's what we're going to look at. That's what we're going to do. Because, you know, yes, we may push the boundaries a little bit if you so desire, if that's what you want me to do. But if you go out and you rate the roads and you pick the right treatment for the route, you have this option of giving you a way to expand your dollars, okay, on square yards like 77,000 square yards. And basically that's really only 10 lane miles, okay? Is all that really is, about 10 lane miles of road.
Now, the difference between, I guess that if you did the paving, that would give a rating near 100, is that?
Well,
afterwards?
Yes, that's
okay.
right.
So then the preservation is, what's the rating with the preservation afterwards?
With all the different pavement preservations that we were doing, and then when they'd come back and ride those routes, just about whether I chip seal the road, I micro the road, or I thin lift the road, okay? Most of my asphalts, of course, I basically got 100 again, okay? My chip seals and my micros that I used, okay, or the thin lifts, okay? And when I mean thin lift, it's still, we're using asphalt. All we're doing is we're putting it down at a thinner rate, okay, than what you normally typically would. We used 165 pounds on most state routes. I started using anywhere from 55 pounds to 95 pounds to 100. That's it. Because it was a way to cut cost, okay, stretch those dollars, because it's a wearing surface. It's, you know, you're going to get the same, almost the same life expectancy out of it, okay, as you would a resurfacing course, okay? But what happens, depending on the road, what happens is look, I've paved all my 27 years of DOT, and I love asphalt. But when I got into the ITV side and got into the asset management side and had all those lane miles to cover, and I was in pretty bad shape because we hadn't had any money for about 8 years. So it's just one of those, it's a little bit different technique, but when the roads were rated, a chip seal or a micro, I put roads together, and I'll show you one picture of one where I did a typical paving on one side, I did a typical, and then I did a micro on the other. When a buddy of mine sent me the stuff and showed me what the ratings were, the same road, same ADT, same everything, the micro road that I'm going to show you here was performing better than the asphalt road, okay? Now, the one difference is, you know, your asphalt is going to ride a little bit better than your pavement preservation roads, whether it's micro or chip. But when you're trying to catch yourself up, okay, and you're spending less money, and you can go back later on and do another treatment to that route that you just chip sealed, say you chip sealed it to seal it off, and then you come back a couple of years later and micro it, you spent less money, you're still saving money than if you would have paved it and walked away from it. But the rating itself, as far as ratings go, when you rate it, what happens is these roads, the cracks come, everything cracks, okay, I don't care what it is, it's going to crack. But like the micros, what we found out with the micros is when they do crack, the crack stays smaller, because the block cracking and the load cracking that I showed you on the pavement preservation side of things, that's your main two things that tell you what really your score is, okay? That's what really drives the scores when you rate those routes. Like I said, just the same thing here, a conventional paving against a whatever, a pavement preservation. Okay, as we know, you know, asphalt, anything has a life expectancy, okay? And normally, an asphalt paved road has a life expectancy somewhere around 12 to 15 years, depending on how good the product was put down and things like that. Well, when you come in and you do the pavement preservation techniques, crack, seal, and patch, chips, micros, things like that, then you're spending less money, but you're maintaining that road and you're staying, you hope to stay right here in this good thing where, because here's the complaint line, here's where the citizens start calling in. When it gets here, in you know, like I said, 12 to 15 years, that's where the potholes, and usually less than that time, really, potholes and stuff, you're probably looking more at 10. That's where the complaint line comes in. That's what we're going to say is our 70 mark, okay? Anything below 70. So anything up here, when we keep it up here, then the complaints go down, less headaches for y'all. The citizens are getting what they paid for, okay, from these techniques, and you stay up here and you maintain your system as a whole, okay? You're able to maintain it better because you're doing these pavement preservation techniques. And like I said, okay. This right here is State Route 142 in Putnam County. This is what the road looked like before we did it, and then we did this. If you look at this, you think we paved the road, right? And we did pave it, okay? But this was a micro resurfacing that I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. This road here was, what it was this road, we didn't crack seal this road. This is one of the roads we compare. I told you that I got the numbers from a friend of mine. On the Jasper County side, we paved 3 miles. We used a chip seal, 7, and we used 100 pounds of asphalt mix. We got to the Putnam County line, we swapped over to the micro resurfacing. We chipped it with an 89, and we put 25 pounds of micro on it. And this road here, as you can see, when it's all said and done, these guys are in and out a little quicker than your asphalt things. There's not as many trucks traveling the road bringing all the mix in. They stockpile their material, and then close by to the route, and then they bring it in, and this is what you end up with. This is on the state route, had 3,500 ADT, had close to a little over 18% truck traffic there. So when I got the rating on this route, the micro was rating a 92, and the asphalt section that was on the Jasper County side was rating an 87. Those 5 points difference, okay? And the main reason those 5 points difference is, like I said, even though this is a lot less material, I did 6 miles for 3 miles of asphalt, okay? That's the whole key to this. When you need more mileage to get caught up, things like this, they really work. And the scores show that over a 4 or 5 year period, that what happens is, it still cracks, but the crack goes, the asphalt crack is, you know, it's almost, you know, it's a quarter of an inch, okay, where the micro crack is still 1/8 of an inch or less. So the smaller the crack, the better the rating is by the machine. And that's just how, and that's why it does what it does. And that's how the ratings are what they are.
Chris, hang on one second. Michael, can y'all see? Come up here and look at this picture right fast on the TV screen. He was the one that was stuck in traffic at the roundabout, by the way. Hey, blame Chris. He's the one that built it.
Uh-oh. You should have no back up the roundabout.
Somebody went through it over the weekend, it looks like. Just saying.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all the bushes just took out.
Uh-oh.
Told you we should have put that hologram
Right.
of a building in the middle.
I told them not to make it look any better.
That's right. That's right. But like I said, this is just a typical this is the micro.
What was the rating of that road before you did
The rating of that road was in the low to mid 70s at the time. So that's where pavement preservation comes in, because if you wait until roads get to 75 or below, then it costs you more money to maintain it. When you maintain roads, and this is what we looked at, when you take and when you're doing pavement preservation, okay, and you use these different techniques to do that with, and I'm talking things that rate between an 85 and a 75. That's that one slide I showed you earlier that showed you where our ratings were on the routes, and that our medium, our highs and our mediums, that's where we were, you know, we didn't have the scores weren't where we want to be, okay? That's where we took the majority of the money, and that's where we spent the money, because we took and we just, a lot of those roads were just crack sealed and patched, okay, because that was the whole key. First thing was to crack seal and patch them. Get them where they're sealed off, and we've got them, we're holding them together. But by just doing that, the scores did come up, okay? And then we started, after that, the goal was after 2 to 3 years was to come back and do these next treatments, whether it was resurfacing the route from capital or using the ITB money to do chips and micros. So, you know, it was a blend of everything, and like I said, using the right technique for the right road at the right time. It saves you so much more money. It's just, you know, it just saves you a lot of money in doing that.
So Chris, on that, when you got a road that's alligated up like that, meaning just lots of cracks, squared up cracks.
Right.
When you just come in and surface over that with a top and, let's say, 1.5 inches pre-paved.
Right.
If you don't sell that off prior to, it just carries through to the new asphalt in about 5 years.
That's correct. Basically, any crack that you have out there, if I go back and, you know, like here, okay, when you have a crack like this, and like I said, you know, this is a fairly good picture, but this is what we call typical transverse cracking and longitudinal cracking. And when you have cracks like this, when you don't either crack seal them or chip it or whatever to seal those cracks off, those cracks come back through. And for every inch of asphalt you put down, it takes 1 year for that crack to come back, okay? It doesn't come back as big, but in 2 years or 3 years, the crack, if you pave it and don't do nothing to it, that crack is going to come back, and the road is going to look a little fresher, not as grayed out, but the same cracks are going to be back, okay? That's always been the golden rule for every 1 inch of asphalt, 1 year when the crack comes back. So, you know, if you put 1.5 inches on it, 1.5 years, that same crack starts shows back, and after 2 or 3 years, it's the exact same crack that was there before. Now, I can come in and crack seal that road, okay, and spend that $2,700 a mile to do that, okay? That crack will show back up in the micro. It will show back up in the asphalt. It takes it just a little longer to get there, okay? But what I do know then is that crack underneath this is sealed. Water's not coming from the bottom. Water's not coming from the top. The water that's coming from the top and trying to get down to this, it's already sealed off, so it pretty much stays right there, okay? And the same thing, it doesn't allow, because what happens with asphalt and binders, when water comes from the bottom and gets in between this layer and that layer, over time, the AC content, it's a stripping agent, is what water is. It strips it, and then it comes loose, and it causes a pothole or whatever the case may be. So that's a good reason to use, I said, you start crack sealing, folks go, oh, why'd you put all those snakes in the road for? You know, but there's a purpose for it, and like I said, it's not going to stop that crack from cracking back up in here, okay, because it's an active crack. That's a hard surface. This is a hard surface. It's going to crack. It's just going to stay smaller, but that crack is sealed, okay?
Does your survey get into the whys so we can take corrective action and keep the problems from, when I say whys, I'm talking about a situation that was caused because of improper base, or we got heavier traffic than what our road is designed for, or if we had poor asphalt or poor placement asphalt. You're going to get into the whys, so maybe we can hem up some of the causes of it.
Right. Well, you know, with everything that I've done over my 27 years, with, especially working with counties and doing LMIG and paving all that, is, you know, yes, you know, county roads, the majority of them do not have the base under them that the state routes do, okay? And that's a cause of a lot of the rutting and some of those things, okay? That's what causes it. It is not enough material there, okay? We can't correct that, so all we can do is try to use the best technique we can, okay, to, like I said, whatever the road looks like and whatever the rating comes back, is use the proper, if that's deep patching, then that's what we're gonna do. Well, I said, we can't go back and, I mean, there are certain roads, yes. I mean, me and Alan looked at a road that's gonna be on the LMIG this year. We're basically gonna reclaim that road. That's what's gonna, Timber, help me out? Timber Lane. You know, that road's too far gone. When you got to do over 50% patching, you're just wasting your money. You might as well just baby it, patch it, do what you can to it, unless you want to spend the money to reclaim and do things like that to get it back where it's a good, rideable service for the public, because they're the one that ultimately pays the bills. And you know, and we got to do so. And that's the reason some of these things are so important to do. Like I said, I can't fix that, but we'll do the thing. We'll use the proper techniques to make sure before we put whether it's a micro or an asphalt or a chip or whatever it is, that's where the crack sealing and the patching is going to come into play if we start this program, is to start working on those roads, start getting ahead of ourselves, so when the T-Splosh money comes in, then we can really hit the ground running with that T-Splosh money, okay, and all that. So, well, but the keys is doing some of these things to get things sealed off and get them ready for that next step. Because no matter where you pave it, put pavement preservation on it, whatever you do, you got to patch them, you know. And all these costs don't include patching. I'm just going to tell you that up front. I don't include that in there because every road that you do, you've got to have some type of patching on, and some roads are worse than others. And you just got to look at it, determine what that is, and do what you can for that particular road that you choose to do. I said this is just a road. This is the road here. This is State Route 12 that goes from Union Point to out toward Crawfordville. This was here in the bottom was a thin lift overlay that we done, and then this was a micro that was just done last year, right before I left. Excuse me. And this is just a contrast between the two. We did 4 miles here, and then this micro here went for 6 miles. Like I said, this section down here cost us twice as much as what the micro cost us. But like I said, it was one of those. This road here was a total test bed when we first started with all this. I took a 12-mile section, and this particular road, I'm going to take Alan to go show it to him, had 6 different pavement preservation techniques. That way I can monitor how each one of those worked on the same route with the same ADT, with the same truck traffic. And so I can monitor that through the scores to see how each technique held up. So it's, you know, I said that's one of those things I'm hoping to get the scores back on at some point when the 21s come in. Haven't got those yet, but it was, you know, it's just one of those. We did a bunch of different techniques to see what was working, what would work and what didn't. Because like I said, when we first started out, it was, you know, this wasn't new to us, but it was one, hey, we want to do this.
So Chris, would it be a fair statement to say, for years, I guess I ain't gonna say done it wrong, we done it to the best of ability, and prior to this board, they done it to the best of their ability.
That's right.
But it's just like technology. If you don't follow the guys that's in charge, like DOT, you're never gonna get anywhere, because they're the guy that spends the money to stay up on technology.
That's right.
Where right now, every year, we go out to bid for the same thing, and we get the same results.
Right.
And that's why I was so impressed about this. 2 reasons. One, we'll see in a little while in the video, and then the cost measures. We're using your technology. We're paying for what you know, where had this been available 25 years ago, the guy would be standing in front of them, we wouldn't be in this shape.
Right.
So we're trying to make turn the corner.
Right.
as we talked about earlier, quit being retroactive and start being proactive, and this
Right.
is the first step of
And
that.
this is the first step. I mean, it's one of those things, it's just, like I said, you gotta start somewhere, because like I said, at the rate that you're going, with the money that you're spending, before you got your T-Splosh, okay, with the money you had for LMIG, I mean, which was about I think your average was, over the last 3 years, been about $750,000 a year. I think you had one good year of 800 something, which was back in 19. I think 19 was a really good year. But on an average, you're spending about $750,000 a year on LMIG. That was your LMIG funds. I know you had other money to go with it, but, by doing that at that rate with the amount of lane miles you have, you're looking at 60 years before you can touch every road in the county, at least. Where this way, when you're doing these other things, these other techniques, you're touching a lot more mileage. It may not be exactly what everybody wants, okay? And if it's not, then we can always go another direction. But what I'm telling you is you gotta do the typical pavement preservation techniques to, like I said, take what you have now and be able to do these other things down the road to get you more mileage. And that's what it's all about, is trying to get you more mileage, sealing your roads off, covering them up. And all your pavement preservation techniques are going to get you 8 to 10 years fairly easy before you really have to do anything else, except for, just like any road. Once you do that, 5 or 8 years down the road, you're going to have little things. You're going to have a little bit of patching that needs to be done. But if you didn't do any of it, you'd have more patching to do, which costs you. Patching is your biggest expense by far. Okay, I mean, it just is. It's to maintain your roads. That's your biggest expense. This is crap. Excuse me. I don't want to take up y'all's time.
Didn't you say it was like a 2-to-1 ratio?
Yes, sir. It is, because basically, typical right now, the average cost that I had doing state routes was somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 a mile, depending on the road and how much we done. Where a typical asphalt resurfacing, like I said, was double that. So, mileage wise, you're getting a good product. You're just getting, you're just getting more mileage out of it. In some senses, that's what you need. Like I said, mainly to seal the roads off and give you a better riding service than what you have.
All right.
This is just a chip seal here. This is what we call a lightweight aggregate. Okay, this was done on State Route. Let me think here. This was done on State Route 16 in Warren County. This was a single application chip seal. What you see here, that color never goes away. It stays just like that. And keep hitting the wrong thing. Well, what's happening here? I don't want to move.
You can have a seat if you want.
It's easier for me to stand. Don't want to move. Okay, this is a micro resurfacing we were showing earlier. This is the process. This is a 4-lane road we did over in Jefferson County on State Route 88. Here's a process we started. This is a micro done on State Route 15. This is at the Greene County, Hancock County line.
And it stays that color, right there.
Well, the micro is going to fade just like asphalt does, okay? But the chip seals, and that's what kind of this picture's for. This is a single chip seal that we've done on State Route 16, 3,500 ADT, almost 20% truck traffic, single thing. And what I want to show you here is, this is the county line. This is Warren County, and this is Hancock County. This is the bridge at the county line. This section of road right here was paved 2 years with a state route resurfacing project after we did this route right here. This is what the lightweight looks like 2 years after the fact. This was taken 2 years. Well, this lightweight now is 4 years old. That over there was about 1.5 years, almost 2 years old, and that was a capital resurfacing. And you can see how it's grayed out already. So this product here is a good product, especially for some of the chip seal routes we got. It'll seal it off. On this particular route, Georgia Tech come out and did a study, and the safety aspect of this stuff here, is the friction on this stuff rivals high friction course. I don't know if anybody's heard about high friction. This was done for $2 and at the time $2.35 a square yard. High friction is done at $25 a square yard, and it gives you the same, as far as the safety aspect, it gives you the same friction number, so to speak.
That way they put in the curves like on,
172.
172.
172, those high frictions, that was high friction that was put down on some of the county roads in places that DOT did. And we just, when we did this, it was just, we come out with our truck, did the skid numbers on it, and we couldn't believe the numbers we were getting. And then Georgia Tech come out and did a 3-year study on it and just finished it up, and the lightweight actually was outperforming the high friction stuff that was put down in different places.
one quick question, and I'll let you free. You rode a lot of roads in Madison County. We had a discussion of what you thought Madison County needed. Repave Madison County, chip seal Madison County, and you told me that you felt like we were probably 60-40, 70-30, leaning towards more chip seal than actual paving.
That's right.
Which was a 3-to-1 margin.
Right.
Between chip seal and paving. Just looking at the roads, looking at the condition they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Primarily, we need to take our mindset away from paving and putting it towards 70% chip seal.
With what I've
With the
seen,
majority.
you know, because some roads are beyond crack seal. Okay, I'm just going to tell you, they'll be so crack sealed that you'd be fussing at me, okay, and the contractors. So the next best thing is to come in with chip seals, whether it's a single lightweight rock like this or whatever. That way you seal the whole road, because understand when you do it, when they come out and pave, they put a .04 tack coat, .04 tack coat, and then they pave it. That .04 doesn't fill in anything. It doesn't fill those cracks in, okay? Where when you come in with a chip seal like this lightweight right here, with this single lightweight 5/16, I should have brought those rocks, but you come in and you get a .20 shot of liquid, and you're treating the whole route. I mean, just like you're treating the road from white line to white line, okay? And that .20 shot of liquid goes in and fills those cracks, okay? That's what binds the rock to the road, okay? But it goes in and it fills that stuff in, and then your rock comes in behind it and it bridges those cracks. Now, those cracks going to come, the transverse and the longitudinal cracks, they're always going to come back. There's no way to stop them, okay? I've tried. But this is a way of slowing it down, and like I said, and this right here is done, the last roads we were doing was being done for $1.35 a square yard. So at that cost, you're looking about 8 to 10,000 a lane mile. So compared to even from a micro, that's another $1 or so more of a square yard, you know, of that, to an asphalt that's over $10 a square yard. So, you know, hey, are you going to get a little kickback? Because I had folks call me, why are you chip sealing my asphalt road? Well, it met the criteria for what DOT had. Anything under 3,500 ADT was okay to chip seal on a state route by DOT policy. Okay? So, but what it done was it allowed me to treat, this road was 9 miles. I treated the whole road, 9 miles of it, 9 centerline miles, 18 lane miles. I treated the whole thing, I think it was, everything together was, I want to say that job was $300,000-$400,000, where if I'd have paid that 9 miles, would have been looking at $3 million to resurface it. That's the thing with these different products.
Alan, can you hit that thermostat?
Yeah.
I'm dying.
Oh, I thought it was me.
No, it's
I thought I was finally hitting that stage.
And like I said, these are just some more chip seals. This was a double that was done and all that. So, I know I took up a lot of y'all's time. I got one last little thing.
You're pushing 1 hour now, just
I'm
so you
sorry.
know, Chris.
Yes,
Well, I've just got one question. It's related to contract administration. I've seen pictures of roads, and I live on a dirt road, so this ain't gonna help. But, on the first page of Exhibit B, paragraph 6, it's the ownership of the documents, that y'all retain ownership. Y'all know we're gonna strike that, don't you? What we pay for, we get to keep. I'm kinda sensitive about stuff like that.
I think that's already been addressed in an email, and I think it was agreed to. But that may have been actually with the other
Yeah,
gentleman,
I think it was,
Aaron Wadley. While he's doing that, did everybody at the board, on the board? Oh, go
and like I said, this is just a process. That's a continuous paver right there. This is how the product goes down. Like I said, it's an emulsion-based thing. It's like a big pug mill. They bring the material in, got water and emulsion in it, and the material with cement and the stuff that makes it, the chemical reaction that it does. They'll tack the road first, and then they'll pull this. Usually 20 to 25 pounds is the average.
Is this a process you can do on smaller city streets?
Perfect for that. Yes, sir. You go in, crack seal and patch it. You come in, especially when you already got curb and gutter that's already filled, stuff like that. So it's time you come in and have to mill it out, and then the milling is half the cost of what this is. So the time you mill it to get the curb back or whatever, you can go in and still put this down, and you don't even know it's there. It gives you that look, and it goes out to 25 pounds, but you ain't got all the milling and things like that to do, and all that. So, I said, good product to use. Like I said, I put it on anything from 1,500 to 3,500 ADT, all the way to 10,000 ADT. It's on 441 south of. I said that's a 4-lane down in that they did down in South Georgia. But it's been it's on 441 south of Oconee County, going into Madison. There's 9 miles there. It's almost one of the first roads that we done with it. We did a chip seal and we did a micro on it. That job was, like I said, it was 18 lane miles. We did it for, I think it was a little over $400-something thousand. Like I said, would have been a $3 to $4 million resurfacing project. But we did that because we knew that section was supposed to be widened, from what it is to supposed to. And we've got 5 years out of it, and it's held up very well. We've had to do some minor issues patching on it because we didn't do a lot on it just because we knew that was coming.
Right.
But for what little bit, I think we had to spend about $5,000 on a few minor little spots to patch, which wasn't the micro deal, it was just the existing stuff there that we didn't get at the very beginning, to be fair and honest with you. So, but like I said, that's, I know it took up a lot of your time, appreciate your time, but it is a way to help you out, get you, and get you more mileage, but give you what you're looking for when it comes to all these different treatments.
Chris, first off, I appreciate it. We started speaking with Neil Schaefer prior to about the survey of our roads. And then the second part, which we just saw, first time I'd seen it was in ACCG in Savannah. I just happened to walk by and that was playing. He was standing there and was like, hey, what is this? Explain it to me.
Right.
And I was blown away by it,
Yeah.
financially and knowing the benefits of this county. Because our roads is either decent or horrible. We don't have good and bad,
Right.
but it's definitely an alternative that, I feel like we're probably gonna be able to use. The contractual stuff, I'm sure Mike can get worked out. Just y'all, whatever questions y'all have, with Mike and then Aaron Wadley. There is something, y'all may have got an email, that's what I was gonna say, when he's putting that on. And I throwed out there the original numbers back from Neil Schaefer, had a city portion added to it. Myself and Alan negotiated with Neil Schaefer to get that dollar amount lowered on behalf of the cities. Turns out, Chris, you might be able to explain this. Cities are a little more difficult to do, I guess, because they're shorter mileage, there's a little more legwork versus doing an 8-mile straight road.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I can, because of the data that I gotta put into the road rating itself, I mean, the to and the from, and then a city street is, whether it's 600 foot long or a mile long or a half a mile, whatever it is, it takes me almost the same amount of time as if I was doing a 3 mile long county road. So, it's because there's just more of them, more concentrated, and, it's just putting in the data itself, and all, you can capture and all that. And like I said, you'll get pictures with that. Each one of those things I showed you, you'll get anywhere from 1 to 2 to 3 pictures. I can take up to 3 pictures per road, not treatment, but per category that I rate. So, and that's what I'll be doing. I'll take pictures at different intervals of the road, depending on the length of it. If it's a short road, you'll probably get 1 picture, but if it's a little longer, you'll get several pictures of the different techniques there.
So in that, gentlemen, y'all see the price is fixed at $68,000. It was originally $64,000, and then it was a $10,000 on top of it for the city streets. So it would have been $74,000. And I actually spoke with Mr. Wadley, and we come to an agreement, instead of the county portion being 64 and 10 being the city, if he would do a 68 across the board, include the cities, that we would be more entertainable with that. I think the information in which we'll gain is a whole new process to the mindset of Madison County, and I think it'll be very well received to our future improvements of our roads. So keeping y'all on board, and the reason the city's here tonight is for that reason, to know that this is what I'm going to ask for, is for the county to afford you that $4,000. Because trying to take $4,000 and divide it by 6 cities with all the different road miles made no sense to me. It was plus when we go to bidding, that was the other thing in the bulk rate. If we do this and we do contract, and that county road runs into the city, you'll pay just that portion. But the bulk rate of bidding at one time versus you bidding your portion and me bidding my portion, we're going to save more money if we'll just do it all together in agreement. And I think all the cities is on board with that. I know Comer may have some stuff already scheduled to be paid now. They'll be doing that. But that was just a prior commitment on a particular road. But we're looking in every avenue to save money for y'all, along with the county, in doing bulk rates. So just want to throw that out there to y'all, and I wanted y'all to see this process along with these gentlemen to see it. There is a thumb drive. I don't know if you brought any extra ones with you.
I do.
Because I've got a couple cities that could not make it tonight, whether they had conflicting meetings or whatever. But I would appreciate 4 or 5 of them that I can get over to them so they can see that. I did send an email to them today and stating that if they missed it, they could watch this presentation back. They won't be able to see your camera, but they can hear what you're talking about.
Right.
From a city-county perspective, I think it's going to be a win-win for both of us.
And I can tell you from in the past, like I said, I was the LMIG coordinator in District 1 from 13 and 14, and I can tell you the cities that worked with the counties in District 1 at the time, Jackson County was one of the main ones. Some of those cities that piggybacked off the county contract when the county LMIG was put together and then put out the bid, when you piggyback off of that, the contractor's here and you're going to get their rate of paving, not what you would normally get, which is probably twice what they pay. So I can tell you it will work. and but we'll discuss that at a future time if this all works out. So.
Alan, do you got anything to add to that? I know you've had a lot of input on this.
Great presentation, great.
How long would you anticipate this rating to take?
Yeah, I didn't see a schedule or time.
Right now, once if y'all approve that for Neil Schaefer and the ratings, once everything gets approved, and pretty much I'm ready to go for the most part. I'm looking at, I think it was 35 or 36 working days to do the county, and it was another 4 to 5 to do. So I'm hoping about 40 working days is what I've kind of got scheduled to do everything. So we're probably looking at 2 to 2.5 months. I'm hoping by the 1st of March, the middle of March, I'll have my part done, that what I've got to do, and then it'll get turned over to the GIS person that takes this information and will make a pretty map and do all that for you. So I'm hoping by the end of March, you'll have this data.
Chris,
And
that
you're,
is going on our database, right, or with our property evaluation?
Right, I'll get the GIS information from her.
yeah.
My girl will do that, and then when everything is done and I get everything rated and she does her part, then we'll basically you'll have access through the survey 1, 2, 3, you'll have access to all that data. You'll have a spreadsheet that you can look at. That's what we did for Byron. We printed him out a spreadsheet where he can look at that. Plus he can go and log in to that system, and you can go in and click on the roads and see what it rated, and see the picture and see what it'll cost, and you'll have a lot of information once we get everything said and done. Yes, sir.
And it does, after speaking with Robin and the county GIS mapper, it all correlates straight over. It's not like there's any hiccup between them. Any other questions for Mr. Deals while he's here? All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thank y'all. Appreciate
y'all.
it.
Mayors, y'all welcome to stay. Y'all heard what I had for you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Michael, I've already plugged your Danielsville's Christmas thing, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I hope that'll be a big turnout for you.
Oh, I think it will be. Thank you.
That's
That'd be great.
That's that micro presentation. Y'all can look at that.
You have a couple extra. I need Comer.
I probably can just email it.
Coleman Collins.
Y'all give me a call and we'll get together.
I can email it.
And
Okay.
Download it and email it.
Go through some other stuff. Thank y'all.
All right, moving on, gentlemen. New business, discuss the 2022 meeting date.
Oh, yeah.
For the Board of Commissioners. Anybody have any conflicts with these?
What are we on, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman?
The meeting dates for the Board of Commissioners for 2022. There's a calendar in your packet.
Yeah, I noticed something, I thought.
May, July, September, October, and December all vary from first to last.
Yes.
But our first one is the first of the year, January 3rd, that's the observance of New Year's Day, so.
Yep.
So,
Are
we gonna meet on?
Are we open?
That's what I'm saying.
No. I didn't even catch that,
Should be
but
the
yeah.
10th then.
Yep.
Yeah, it needs to be moved to the 10th. And everything else seems to be fine.
I think that we are,
We're below the 31st this year, you're talking
yeah,
about
that's
this New Year's or next New Year's?
the 2022 New Year's. I think that we're closed December 31st. I think that's how they voted. I can check on it before we vote on it. I think that's what they did with.
All right, we'll send out an email if something's different.
So it'd either be the 3rd or the 10th.
And on the, discuss the holidays also for 2022. Can we cut a couple of those out? Just kidding, calm down.
We need to add a county clerk holiday.
Huh?
We need to add a county clerk holiday. It could be a 3-day one.
All right, if
But
nobody,
you start the first of the year off with January 3rd, wouldn't it? When it was probably approved on the 2021 calendar because but you're not gonna be open
I see
January
what you're
3rd.
saying, yeah, I see that.
Except you said it might be the 31st instead.
Right, this one is for 2023, so that'll be January the 2nd for 2023, will be put out. To where this one's for 2022. But I'll look at the December 31st to see if that's how that y'all voted on it last year.
all right, Monday is the 3rd,
Yeah,
and we're in observation on the 31st,
but I double,
2022.
yeah, I can double check that to see how it was voted on last year.
Do we still want to have,
The way we usually work it is if the holiday falls on a Saturday, you take the Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, you take the Monday.
Right,
Yeah, and
so
that's what
if the
That'll be
the
fine.
first
most
is,
businesses do.
so that, well, the first is on a Saturday, so we took the Friday. So then January 3rd would be correct.
Correct.
Okay, I'm good. I'll be.
That makes sense?
Up to
I
it.
will
Oh, it
verify- I will-
makes sense with the county.
But I will double check
Okay.
that to see how it was.
All right.
done.
I'll just have to make sure.
All right, discuss the 2022 beer and wine license application.
So for all the applications that have been turned in, everyone has checked off everything except for Danielsville Grocery. We're just waiting on a publisher affidavit. It should be in this week's paper. So by the time that y'all get to vote on it, everything should be up to date. The second sheet, Lacey, she's been doing a lot of the beer and wine stuff coming in, so she color-coded everything, and you can see who's missing what, who needs what. We dated every step of the way for each one when reports came in, affidavits, background checks, etc. We do have a few that, once they're voted on approved, will come in and pay their licensing fee then.
All right, and all this will be for vote on December 20th.
Yes.
Discuss abandoning a portion of Osley Mill Road at the Ford location. That's probably what you're here for, ain't it?
Yes, sir.
All right. Y'all have a copy of this in front of you. Alan, you still here? Yeah, I'm making sure.
I have a couple of plans
Yeah.
if you need to see it. I didn't know if you had them. Okay.
Give them to us. Now, currently at this Ford, the school bus don't cross the Fords anyway.
That's correct. Post office doesn't cross the creek. Fire departments don't cross the creek. EMS does not cross the creek. There's one other one that don't cross it. I'm in Collins District, Carlton's on the other side. They don't, the road may not support them crossing it. Everything's separate. Postman comes, turns around at my place, and goes back the other way.
Yeah, I don't blame them.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, it's just been a problem, Alan, it's been tremendous over the years. I pull an average of 10 to 15 cars that get stuck out of there, and that's not the ones I don't even know about. It's just it's a bad section, needs to be closed permanently. There's no way to really to fix it. Alan's and I've discussed it many ways. And to be honest, it's against state law. You're not supposed to cross a creek with water, drive a car through water. I didn't know that, but Graham told me that, so, Pat Graham.
And currently, it's about 4 foot deep in sand. They can't cross it anyway.
Well, I let somebody come get 15 dump truck loads, and I still got 50. And I think Alan's gonna come get some for the rec department.
Yeah.
Which I said, you know, come get it, you know, and, there's plenty of it. And this flood, I got some pictures on my phone you're welcome to see. It's flooded before, but this is a major flood. It's created a lot of damage, and it's pushed up way down everything, just brought everything down. Hurt my house.
The road comes down.
I've got
probably $100,000 worth of damage to my house
That's what fixed it.
from the flood.
Alan, you wanna step up here in case there's a question, you can show them on the map on this side of the table, please?
I know exactly where it's at.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Most everybody calls it David's Mill. That's what I call it. That's what my uncle taught me.
Now, this is that's also where the Georgia power line runs, right there in the creek too,
That's correct. It actually runs 8 feet from my house.
yeah.
They ran it down the line, and then I've had discussions with them, which I didn't even know until
So where's he
I
accessing?
called them one time.
He can access
Yeah,
it from
they
anywhere.
did the survey for me and stuff, so, and I actually had them out there, Jackson EMC. They don't have a problem with that being closed, because it doesn't affect them.
That's right.
It goes to that first driveway on the other side, they have one transformer there, then I think Hard Electric picks it up from there.
So did they have issues when it flooded? Did it cause any electrical issues in there?
No, but they came and raised up my line up on my house higher.
Did they?
Yeah, which I needed to have done anyway. But they didn't have any issues with it.
It's a wonder somebody didn't get killed down there.
Well, that's
That water
right.
was out the bank, probably
Yeah,
100
well, you
feet.
can't cross it with a fire truck or the EMS,
No,
as he's already
too
said. They ain't, and you can't cross it with most anything. You can cross it with you can cross it, my Jeep, or used to. with-
Well, when it's, and listen, they have tried to cross it when the creek's up. One day I allowed them to go on my property, a truck went down pretty good ways, you know, and took them 3 days to get it out. Insurance company wouldn't pay for it unless it got it out of the creek. And, you know, it's just a bad spot, and as Alan and I have discussed, there's no way to put culverts in there, it's too low.
Yeah,
You know, it's not, land-wise, it's not doable.
and that little patch where they poured that concrete and all that stuff.
It's cracked up, there's holes
I know,
in it.
and it didn't help anything, it actually made it worse now.
Yes, it did. And also, the water comes where that's low right there, of course, the banks are higher. That water actually came down my driveway, and that's what went under my house. 5 feet of water underneath my house. It flowed right there. Now, it did flow over the rest of the yard too, but the main,
Oh, you don't
you
want
could
it
see
closer though.
where everything was just moved.
50 feet from the center line of the
Sir,
creek?
what's your
Okay.
name?
Mark Jackson, and my wife's name is Lynn Boyd.
Mark, that road only serves 3 homes, is that right?
All right, so there's me, my neighbor that I own the dam on that's 1.04 acres. He has a hunting lodge there, he lives in Lakeland, Florida. I've discussed it with him, he doesn't even come in that way, he comes in the back way.
He's got both sides, okay.
All the homes are within 500 feet of Cherokee Road, where it dead ends on the other side.
Yeah.
It's me,
And if you
400
allow-
acres, 200, the closest
Okay.
neighbor, Mr. Holbrook,
Because I know that if,
had
So I'll need some
bought
kind
that
of way to
200
describe
something
where
acres,
the points
which
are.
is about halfway up, going towards Cherokee and Vineyards Creek Road. He wants it close too. He has a lot of problems with four-wheelers and stuff, people coming on his land, and just
And
coming,
this is him.
they race down the road, basically.
Make sure
It's,
it's okay with it, find out where it drops.
I'm not gonna get it.
The property on the side,
Correct.
We
we
did
can
one.
close, I mean.
Correct.
Now, to get terminology right, remember, the county doesn't close road, we abandon it.
Okay, thank you.
Last week.
I would really,
It'd be up to you to
You know what I'm talking about?
stop it.
Okay.
We
don't you
abandon it.
worry, it'll get, Mr. Holbrook and I have already discussed that.
the problem is,
You know, all we would ask is maybe the correct signage,
Right.
you know, 'cause, look, there's gonna be a few pissed off people that use it as a cut through. And my contractor that's working on my house, this is exactly what he told me. He said, most people that are gonna complain about that road are the ones that are high in drugs, that they don't go on 72 so they don't get caught, they come through that road.
Well, thank you for that definition, I appreciate
So,
it.
as I remember, closest, once you cross the creek, what's the next closest?
Closest home?
Yeah,
Closest home is the Honey Lodge, which he doesn't live there, he just comes and hunts.
right.
And then the next one is probably a mile, mile and a half, 2 miles up the road.
That's what I
And
thought.
then past him, it still goes a little ways further. Then the cluster of little homes are right there, you know.
That's it.
So they're all up on the other end. And,
We're okay, Zach wasn't here for that statement.
Yeah.
forgive me for anything I said.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, I got it.
You know, I've been here since '06, and, Alan has been good. Alan's worked tirelessly trying to keep the road, fixed, and it does. I mean, and I don't call him unless I'm upset, which my wife backed up and got stuck. That was a bad day. But, Alan's been good about it, but it's just a lot of people, when they come to the creek, half of them back up. That's when they get stuck into the sides and stuff. And, you know, so I just think on a public standpoint, it would be good to abandon the road, and that would eliminate a lot of people's headaches.
Currently, it's about 12 feet wide.
Yeah.
It's very narrow.
If
So when
that,
you get there, you gotta
so-
go into your yard to turn around.
So, Alan, when you had the map up here, which side, you own
Both sides.
both sides?
Correct.
And so, we're talking about closing it off far enough up there to where you don't get so far down that if you turn around, you're not risking.
Right, in this bend right here, where we're talking about my neighbor, and I've talked to him, he's, and like, his name is Denver. He has a driveway here, and I have a back road access to my property. So I told Alan, we were gonna put the gate, you know, before those two drives. I told Alan he could take what he needed to make a roundabout there, so they could turn around,
Okay.
you know. Perfect. And then I think if we could get the right signage on both ends, you know,
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be dead end and private drive from that point forward.
Yeah, you know, and I mean, there'll be a few upset people, but when the time goes, it'll be less headaches for the county.
Yeah, well, there's no way to fix that.
No,
A bridge.
Well, I know, but
Good idea.
then too, when you get the bridge, you also got the electrical issue that,
Yes.
the last time I got involved with that, is there's a big thing, because there's all kind of issues with putting a bridge in there with the electrical underneath that thing, and, you know, and probably, this commissioner probably knows more about all those issues, but that was just a consideration, because that's one reason we never have been able to do anything with it.
well, it's just one of those problems. I think you made a comment, you know, we're trying to get proactive now, and it's been pushed past, you know, by a lot of people. You know, don't worry about it, we'll keep grading it, you know.
So when we take a vote on this at the next meeting, our vote will be to begin the process, which will be advertising, all the official advertising stuff that we have to do.
Yeah, and I just told Alan, between now and then, somebody's gonna have to figure out the exact points,
Yeah.
beginning and end points, so I can put those in the legal description.
Does that need to be survey points, or?
Doesn't have to be, as long as we can identify it by distance from a landmark of some sort. You know, law doesn't require survey. Survey'd be best, but we don't usually do it.
Well, that dam has, been there since, 1790, so it ain't going nowhere. It's granite. So that's a good point to measure from.
Right.
And Denver said that we could use whatever we need. He knows that they gotta use his driveway to turn it around.
Yeah, and we wanna make sure we got that in.
We'll get it in writing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll talk to Denver about that, and then my driveway to my other part of my land is right across, straight from his, so you get whatever you need from me for that, to make a proper round turn.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. If you want to, I guess, we'll probably just look at the agenda. If you don't see it on the December 20th agenda,
Okay.
it'll be only because we haven't got all of our due diligence done, of getting letters or getting advertisements done.
And anything you need from me, I do work out of town. I drove 900 miles for this meeting today, so, which I was in West Palm Beach, Florida. And I actually have to be back to 20th for my doctor's appointment, so that's a good one. But
We actually can go ahead and vote on the 20th anyway, because we just voted to begin the process.
No problem.
I appreciate your consideration on this and the help to solve these problems.
I would come on the 20th, just, now that he
I'm-
said that, he's correct, in case somebody's here in opposition.
Well, that's right. And I can't see, I think Alan has talked to several people, you know, and the one question he asked him, well, where do you live in reference to this? I mean, they all live by Cherokee Road and Vineyards Creek Road, or on the other side, which is,
I remember this report, I remember this one really well, because I've been down there many times and all, and we did have some people that lived all the way on the other end of it that were talking about trying to fix that road. That's the reason we got involved with it before, to cross the bridge, because they didn't want to cross down there through the creek. And that's when we found out that there was not a whole lot, or anything really we could do without, we're talking spending our whole, we're talking about spending our LMIG and our T-Splosh for the next 20 years.
you'll
to
spend
fix that
some
issue
millions of dollars
on a dirt
fix
road.
that.
And
Yeah.
so, it just does not make sense.
Now,
Well-
just clarifying, now, the letters and all that won't go out until after the meeting
After
on
that,
the 20th.
that's
So the public hearing and the vote will be the last meeting in January. Yeah.
Yes.
And anything you need from me, I'll be glad to get it to y'all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, number 8, discuss going out for request for proposal for a wage study. All right, we've talked about this, multiple times, about trying to get everything in line and look and see where we're at. Are you gentlemen ready, for an RFP on a wage study? Or would you like to postpone to after the first of the year? Keeping in mind that once we get that,
Be nothing to lose by going ahead and getting the
Yeah,
request
I-
for proposal out there.
I agree. All right, so we'll move forward with that.
So we need a vote on it to move forward, to go out for RFP?
Not unless you're gonna spend more than $100,000.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Discuss reappoint Nathan Owens as a member of the Madison County Board of Elections and Registers, office. We'll do this in,
This is
we'll
just
discuss it
discussion.
both. So I have, Nathan Owens and discuss Rebecca Scott as a Madison County Board of Elections and Registers Board. Anybody have any questions about either one of them? Both of them's here. Good to see you both.
Great. Okay, Nathan, let's go. Okay. So I guess y'all are willing?
You're both willing and ready to
Y'all-
serve.
Y'all ready to serve then, huh?
That's right.
Okay, great.
I believe it is.
Yeah. Anything we need to know about? Besides
Y'all
that
are
you're
not here
willing?
to object to being reappointed.
Now, they,
Mighty quiet, Commissioner.
We had those, little couple of court hearings, on that Comer elections thing, and they both came to both of those, and I appreciate that. That was helpful to have the board there.
thank you. So, do we vote on that next?
Yeah,
This
we
is-
don't,
all this is just for discussion, there's nothing to
Okay.
vote on,
All right.
nothing but.
Very good.
unless y'all change your mind.
Nope.
We don't have nothing for y'all, that means y'all in pretty good shape, I guess, if you want it.
Yeah. All right.
You sure? You got the
Don't
20s
talk
to
about,
back out.
look, don't talk them out of it.
No, thank you both very much for being in attendance.
Chaz next year.
Discuss reappointing Kenneth Bradley as a member of the Planning and Zoning Board. Discuss reappointing Cynthia Fortson as a member of the Planning Board.
Yeah.
Any discussion on either one of those? They both want back on, I guess.
Yes, I spoke with Kenny and he agreed to go back out.
I have not spoke with Cynthia Fortson, so I don't,
She is the appointment of the Planning and Zoning Board.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's just for discussion anyways, all right, thank you. Discuss the survey from the Old Presbyterian Church. All this is Gary has completed the survey of just the church. I think you left about a 10-foot boundary. Well, I'm sorry, 30-foot on one side, give or take. It ain't quite sitting square on the property, so.
Pretty tight around the building because of all the existing graves.
Yeah. So that has been completed, it has been recorded. Our next step on this, does not have to be done right now. It can be done after first of the year, but now that it has been platted out, we could probably move forward if you choose to in the coming months to deed over the cemetery to the city of Danielsville, so it's no longer our baby. Discuss the survey for 94 Spring Lake Drive, the old Board of Elections and Registers office, which is now being occupied by the IDBA, IDBNA. Any discussions? You have these drawings in front of you, this is also on the map. It's the smaller version. It looks like you were able to squeeze that parking lot over to the right side there.
I think we put the boundary line like 4 or 5 foot off that existing pavement on neighboring buildings, what we ended up doing with that.
Okay. So now this piece of property does stand as a standalone piece of property. 0.08, 0.80 of an acre. Any discussion on that particular survey?
You have a copy we could look at as
I do.
a-
I do.
Sorry.
Well, there was we got an email about some difference in the thought process about how best to handle this transfer. Do we need to discuss that now, or?
We can. Yeah, no problem. Josh, if you look at that map to your left, that boundary line is the other property owners on your left.
Correct, okay.
Okay.
So there's no
Any
problem.
variance on it? I mean, is the 0.8 acre, is it meet all
It does in the city,
Okay.
because they have city water and city sewer.
So, is it in the city limits?
Yeah, it's in the city, yeah. That entire development is in the city limits on Danielsville, yes.
They might not have to meet zoning requirements anyway, but do you know off the top, does it meet theirs, or do you know?
I don't know.
Okay. So this one hadn't been recorded yet?
I hadn't recorded either one.
Either one of them, okay.
I want to say it, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I did, look at the lighting out there, which is kind of interesting, because for some reason, the Board of Commission pays for the street lighting up and down the streets there. If it's in the city of Danielsville, you know anybody with the city of Danielsville anymore? I think the mayor just left. But I'm thinking that it would be nice to get the city of Danielsville to pay for the street lights up and down the streets. They do everywhere else in the city.
Shouldn't be a problem. Have they been changed over to LED yet?
Nope.
No problem.
Was there any other issues that were brought up, Mike?
Well, yeah, yeah, where do you want to deed it, you know, just be rid of it? If IDBA would own it free and clear, it could do whatever they wanted to with it in the future, or if you want to retain control of it, like a reverter, if they ever cease to use it or something like that, really the only way to accomplish that is going to be just to do a long-term lease. You could do it up to 50 years, so depends on whether, and that's probably for discussion between my two chairmen here, the two boards, but,
Really indifferent to us. Obviously, something longer term is ideal, whether that's transfer of ownership, maybe simplest, but if for some reason there's a desire to kind of keep your claws in it, so to speak, the lease certainly works.
I think there were some legalities on the reverter clause.
Yeah,
a reverter clause is not really going to work, right?
So it's one of the
other.
That's right.
We didn't want y'all to take it and sell it. So if you ever quit using it, then it just.
We're not gonna be selling the house we live in.
But that was it. So if the charter ever expired or ceased it, so that it would return to the county. But there was a problem with that, with just giving you the property.
Yeah.
So if, then again, not trying to keep clause in it, but just.
I think the fact that y'all appoint the board members would be a whole.
Yeah.
I think the documents that Mike got drawn up is pretty
Yeah,
good.
I've already done a 50-year lease, and it just says, obviously you don't want to have any ongoing maintenance obligations, so it places all of those on the IDBA with a sort of a bailout clause that if they didn't want to do it, they could just terminate the lease and it would come back to the county. I think that's probably the only problem. The most likely problem with doing it that way is if and when you do come to that big maintenance decision, the IDBA may or may not want to put a lot of money into it unless they own it outright. So
They'd probably come to us for money.
expansion, if we needed to add office space or add another building to the back if there's room?
The way it's drafted now, it requires, the county's permission, like usual, gotta get the landlord permission to do substantial changes.
But at least you got a home for 50 years. You ain't gotta pack up and move like you've been doing. Or just left your stuff in
The
boxes.
LDA's attorney is okay with this, you think?
Think so.
Well, there's been some discussion, Frank. There's been some discussion about the IDA's attorney and the Board of Commissioners attorney
Yeah,
getting along.
I'm wondering which one's billing us for this.
Well, I can tell you, as attorneys, he's double billing for it. There's no doubt about that.
Mike,
Now, that's not the Christmas spirit, come on.
right there, wasn't it? Somewhere between the short ones. All right, so we'll get that fine-tuned, get it before us, let's get it all signed up, get it to Josh, make sure he's good with it, they're good with it, and then we'll record it and be done with it. All right, discussed adopting the language access plan for the Cdbg grant. Christina, Mike, who?
This was brought up at the meeting that me and Todd went to the other day with Frankie and with the lady from DCA, Melissa Thompson come, and Lydia Godfrey from Northeast Georgia Regional Commission. It's just part of their special conditions for the DCA grant, and it's just normal paperwork that goes through the process for an LAP plan.
Well, I'm not a lawyer for anybody, but I read through it and I didn't see anything.
Yeah, it's a language access plan, so it's just, from my understanding, it's just legalities that as a government we have to follow, to provide, kind of like an ADA compliant type situation. You don't prejudge anybody for bids, stuff like that.
Do we have a language access plan?
Yes, I have it, but
Oh, okay.
it's several pages long, so I
Okay,
just feel like
no, that's fine.
everybody would
I was noticing it said that we're adopting one.
I think you did include that in the email, didn't you?
Yes, I think I did email that out to
Yeah.
everyone, I just didn't.
I didn't read all of it, but I said we had one, so.
Yeah.
All right, so, did anybody see any discrepancies or anything that may prevent me from signing this?
It needs to be, Melissa Thompson, I think Frank, do you remember if she said she needed it December the 21st or the 22nd? It was one of those dates right after the December 20th meeting to approve it, so if there is anything
And I
that
think
you'll need.
stretch that out on the schedule.
This is for the special conditions, so I think this is towards the end of the month, because I had mentioned it about the December 20th meeting for us.
And she said that's fine, let her know the next day that it's signed, email it over to her, we're good.
Yeah.
So again, that's just information till the 20th.
If it's something we need to act on, if Mike reviews it and okays it, I don't think there's any need, there's no monies involved in it.
Well, but I think they're requiring it be a resolution of the Board of
Gotta be a
Commissioners.
resolution. Yeah.
I don't see any problem with it moving forward.
Is there a time issue that we need to go ahead and deal with?
No, not, as long
do
as,
it at the
as long as it's fine for y'all on the 20th, we don't have to make any changes on the 20th, then the 20th is fine to vote on. I'll just get Todd at 8:05 in the morning, sign it, and we'll send it over. Oh, yeah, that's
Hey,
call
don't
him
start.
back in and ask him why he
Cheers. All right. We'll skip 16 to the end. You're still on the clock, ain't you? No, I'm
Always on the clock.
I'm just kidding. The sheriff made him come. Jeff Bond discussed 2022 Madison County Sheriff's Office seizure budget, discussed 2022 Madison County Jail Commission budget, and discussed the 2022 Madison County Christmas donation budget. Everybody has a copy of these in front of them. I'm sure there's probably been questions in the past. I personally have no questions. I think the board
Pretty
might.
self-explanatory, to be honest with you, is auditing purposes. Everything's audited, everything's checked, so
Yeah.
it's there.
And it's okay if we just prove it as a next meeting, huh?
Correct. Moving on, number 19, discuss 2022 law library budget. And I had to get clarification on this one, because obviously I saw fees collected and then I saw expenditures and I want to know why. Hey, thanks for hanging in here with us, brother. Y'all be safe out there. Turns out this is all reimbursable by the state, so none of this is, we're losing money on, they give it to them to do with. They just have to present it to the Board of Commissioners just for viewing purposes only.
Yep.
And also the same as number 20, the clerk's deed budget. That's also reimbursable from the state, has nothing to do with Board of Commissioners.
But it's like, Mr. Bone mentioned, it's all budgets that have to be actually voted on.
Discuss 22 Madison County Food Bank budget.
Before we leave law library.
Yep.
That's where you get your money to do the codification updates, you know that?
I've already done all that.
All right,
yes, sir.
perfect.
I'm just waiting on Katie to give me the final yes or no.
Okay.
So I already sent all that to her.
Good point, Mike, thank you. Budget for the food bank. All that really is they have a $6,000 budget. They've only used it one time. We've allowed it 3. It's only been there once. I'm leaving it in there. It may not get touched for this go around. It may not get touched for the next 5 go around. At this point, the Madison County Food Bank, Ms. Bobby Rooker, does a phenomenal job with her bookkeeping, with her distribution of food, and the way she screens her clientele coming in to get food. I'm not going to upset the apple cart in this particular matter.
Is that, so this budget 65,000, that's the total of all their?
No, that's what they've received this year, or projected.
That's not the county portion.
I know, the county portion is only the 6,000.
Yes.
That's what I just clarification.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't.
As it's presented, it's just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just please don't print it. We need all the donations we can get.
Oh, I know.
Always. The true number is, if we had a major pandemic that people had to turn to, we're in pretty good shape with a food bank. And again, it's attributed to Ms. Rooker and how she handles her daily business.
Oh, sure. It's just the overall.
No, you're good. Thank you. All right, under urgent matters. So this is urgent because I was late to the meeting, about 10 minutes. Today, we met with Andrew Tritt, Managing Director, Stifel, Public Finance, and this was, it goes along with what Derek suggested, that we probably need to discuss the ID and BA, whatever, IDBA, debt services. So, in meeting with Andrew today, he gave us a couple options, and before you, I have a couple of sheets printed off for you. One is the current GPA loans that's out there, and you'll notice A, B, and C has a loan rate on it. You'll see D and E does not. D and E is it's non-interest bearing. The first thing I want to start off with is keep in mind all the debt that we're going to be discussing here over the next little bit is not new debt, it is old debt. The 4.7, we know where that come from. That was the debt to bring water into our county, to provide the citizens up Highway 72. The 78401 could have been 10 years ago. I don't know exactly when it originated. The 703-392, again, same thing. Could have been 15 years ago. I don't know when it originated. So, as we discussed in the last BOC IDA meeting, was trying to help them reduce their debt burden, to free up some capital for them to be able to put more money towards the 4.7. Around the table this morning from Mr. Stifel, he has a couple scenarios for us to be able to do this. If you'll look at the second page you have there of your flow chart, it's actually a graph chart, is a interest rates currently. And you'll see where they're at today versus where they're at, what we have financed at right now, 2.31 and 2.13 is the only two I'm really discussing. Because we feel like those are the two that needs to be cleaned up the worst because of the oldest debt. And how we're gonna be able to fund that debt service. There's many ways we can kick this can, but it's the prime time to utilize a low interest rate and to do a refi on this note. I don't know in history that it'll get this low again. The numbers that Adam has, or Andrew, Mr. Tripp, had presented us today, we would be somewhere around 1.5. Correct? 1.5, somewhere right in there, 1.5?
He's like figure seven.
Below two.
Yeah. Which is the return savings on those. The county, by doing a refi now, we have a potentially an opportunity to save about $260,000. Right? Over
Over how long?
over 10 years, correct? Help me out, Josh. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
You can have a seat if you want.
This way can come up with yeah, so basically what we discussed this morning, and a lot of this kind of triggered off of conversations that we've had collectively and individually, you know, certainly kind of stemmed from our joint meeting that we had just a little over a month ago now. Trying to be strategic about what we do with the debt that the IDA has. And again, the recognition that all of this, with the exception of the $4.7 million, is really old debt that none of y'all, none of us had anything to do, but yet we bear it today. You know, obviously of the 5 notes that we've got, and again, that includes the $4.7 million, you know, 2 of them are 0% interest rate. You know, you wouldn't touch them. You know, we'll keep making payments. That's low cost money by any stretch. So, you know, so those 2 really aren't in the discussion today as far as attacking any of the debt. We'll continue to carry those and make that annual debt service payment that you see. But really what we're looking at doing, because we've been given inclination from the board that y'all would like to throw a portion of money to the IDA strictly for debt services, take a look at the loan A and C that I believe he's got on your schedule there, and what's the best way to pay those off, and basically get those off the books. And then the refinance that he's talking about would be through a bond refinance, strictly of the $4.7 million note. And the reason we're looking at that, you know, again, that conversation and that project originated back in 2017. You know, 2.25% rate was terrific then, and it's still a good rate today. But you know, when you have the opportunity to potentially cut a 1/4 point or you know, maybe up to 1/2 point off of that note on the front end, you know, because that note will go into amortization starting in January. So you know, we're on the front end of that $4.7 million note. So if we have the opportunity to refinance through a bond refinance, we're going to see the most savings that you could ever see in that note, because we're going to lower the rate on the front end. So that's really what we're looking at. It's kind of 2 separate issues here, I guess. You know, one, we'd look to you for some support of a payment, I guess, to the IDA from your budget, as you look at the budget for next year, in lump sum to attack those 2 notes A and C. And again, one of them is $780,000, one of them is $703,000. So, you know, individually, collectively, that's about $1.48 million. So, you know, strategically, how do you as a board want to flow those funds to the IDA for that? And then the second issue would be, you know, we'd want your support as we endeavor to refinance the $4.7 million new GFA note that basically was used to bring GRP here. You know, so that moving forward, we can, you know, carry that on our end.
Which we already support the bond at hand now. I mean, the dollar amount now at hand.
That's right.
Correct. So we really won't be taking on any more debt. We'll just be standing behind the debt already acquired previously.
You know, I think it's come up, you know, certainly in our conversations here, in our joint meeting, and individual conversations, you know, this is, the IDA's name's on it, but this is collectively the county's debt, you know, all of us as taxpayers are already on the hook for all this money. You know, and what can we do to be strategic about reducing that debt load?
So, I actually told you wrong a minute ago. When I said we had a potential to save $260,000, something I didn't think about earlier was if A and C goes away, you also save all that interest over those terms. So that actually would have been a larger increase.
That's right. Yeah, and what we're looking at, the $260,000 is basically, if you take the $4.7 million note and we pay it out through GFA like expected versus the refinance, basically over that 20-year note, you know, be about a $263,000 savings. So, that savings directly tied to that. So again, that doesn't calculate in, you know, the interest savings on the remaining. I think the 231 rate note, I wrote these down somewhere if I can find it. I think its amortization would go all the way out to about 2036. So, you know, there's about 15 years left on that note. The 2.13 note, I believe, goes out to about 2033 or 2034. So, again, there'll be a significant interest savings on those notes as well over the time period that we'll no longer be making payments on those. The way and again, you know, we met with Stifel today, and in discussions with Andrew, trying to be strategic in how we set up the payment structure for the new bond. We'll actually front load some of that principal payment. So if we pay off these two notes with funds from you, those payments that you see there, the $62,000 and $64,000 respectively, will actually be paid into that bond up front, just to make the principal numbers work out a little better on that. So, you know, we won't see any immediate day-to-day cash flow improvements because it'll be redirected to the bond, but again, that's what's really fueling that cost savings.
Correct. So in brainstorming today, it's okay, how are we gonna do this? We have several options. Option one, to raise the mill rate from the IDA, because you're allowed to add another point, which is not realistic. Because that's the last thing we want to do. This is all my opinion. This is me speaking to them today. It's not a win for anybody. We've taken the ARPA fund to create the next 5 years worth of projects and applied for the grant, which everybody knows this. 2.5 million's applied, trying to get 7.5. That should create 5 years worth of water line extensions. So there would be no need in going out and acquiring new debt for at least probably 5 or 10 years. That would have an attachment to it if awarded $10 million. That's all, if awarded $10 million. Or
the idea there is you wouldn't go into more debt unless there was some type of a debt that you could see a payback on, kind of like doing the $4.7 million to turn around and get the investment back into the county and the tax base generated there.
If you had another large business that needed infrastructure to it that's not on our current plan, you know, obviously, you know, that'd be another discussion. But you're correct. We're not.
You're not wanting to go into deeper into debt unless there's payback for that debt.
Yeah. One of the things that I'd suggested to them today, and Mike was sitting at the table, was had a $4.7 million business, or that would cost us that to lure them here, we would probably be looking at a pilot. In other words, that payment that's paid per taxes would go towards the debt services immediately instead of being funneled out 10 or 15 or 20 years. So we will stop accruing debt, because that's exactly what we just done. We paid out 4.7, we've got back 2.3 and 1.8. Had we have put it towards the debt services, we wouldn't be having this discussion.
And that's one reason Todd mentions he's not in favor of raising mills. I'm not either. You know, really the reason I propose it as a budgetary consideration for you all. Again, y'all seen an increase in revenue. The Board of Education saw an increase in revenue due to the digest growth that GRP, for instance, brought in. So, you know, and I know the county's probably in a better position right now, putting some back in surplus. So while the county's in that position, you know, that's the reason requesting that if it's a mill that's the value that we're looking at, redirect it out of your budget to the IDA for the water and sewer service contract we've got, whatever it is, but know that it's gonna be used for debt service. But that way, basically, we're shifting the mill that you're already taking, funding it into the IDA, but the overall millage rate's not going up in the county.
Correct. With that being said, and this is working out good, thank you for filling in back and forth. The county reserve, through good decisions that this board made this previous year, and even in a couple past years, good decisions, has got the reserve in a healthy spot. We will be forced by law, if we don't lower that reserve some, to do something. I would say redirect that toward this debt service. So if I was gonna levy a mill, I would just give you a mill out of the reserve to go towards this debt service. I would structure that one of two ways. I would either look at giving you a mill up front to take care of the biggest one, or I would give you 2 mills, or the total, which is about $1.5 million, to relinquish both of these debts at one time, which will free up the most amount of money to go towards the 4.7. We are in a unique position through federal funds, through T-Splosh, through other things, to get a lot accomplished this year. Do we not, if we do not swing for the fence now on getting this debt service reduced, we'll only be hindering ourselves in the future. So that was my plan as to how to get the funding to save money. Let's spend money, save money.
Well, and again, recognizing that, you know, the revenue source, if there has been any on any of this debt, has not come to us historically, ever, you know. So again, just trying to redirect that revenue that has come into the county for the purposes of servicing the debt. And you know, really what we need to know is, as we approach the bond scenarios, if we're looking at refinancing that $4.7 million note, how heavy we weigh the payment for the principal on the front end is really going to be determined on if one or both of these notes is paid off, because obviously we don't want to weigh that debt service too heavy on the bond side, and we still got one of these GFA notes to pay. So, and again, that's y'all's decision, but that's information that we're going to take into consideration when we're looking at the next draft of the bond refinance proposal.
One of the things, we've got a really crack attorney that works for us at the IDA, and I'd suggest that we use his services to propose an intergovernmental agreement with the Board of Commissioners, because I think that's what our discussion came about today, to facilitate that.
Sure.
I don't know if y'all know our crack attorney or not.
Yeah.
Can I get his card?
That'd be a modification to the.
It would be a modification,
existing.
yeah. So the relationship on this goes back to 01 or 02, when the original IGA was done between the two bodies that put water and sewer in the IDBA's court. So yeah, it would just be a modification to that to acknowledge the infusion of funds from BOC to IDBA for these purposes, and just document the public benefit of that.
What is the reserve now?
That's exactly what I was fixing to say. Derek, I think we checked into it, was about 8.3.
But, yeah. It's the cash flow the county has, right before we get
For the
taxes in, it drops about 8.3.
For the public's information, I think that it would be prudent at this time to talk just a little bit about what's going to happen if we don't reduce our reserves. There's two sides to this equation that we need to recognize.
You are very correct, and thank you for bringing that up. This seems like a discussion between us and them, but it's really not.
This is not between us and them. This is for information for the folks sitting there. That's all this is about.
That's what I was going to relate to is, inevitably, this is all taxpayer dollars. Now, do I give taxpayer dollars to bear interest on 6.14, or do I pay interest on refinance 4.7? It makes more sense financially to lower that interest. while we have the opportunity. On that graph, you'll see, and I follow the stock market, but I don't know how close it's going, but we are in a downturn. This is something that'll probably stay this way until January. Moving quickly, we have an opportunity to capitalize on this low rate. After the first, it could potentially start creeping up. 0.3, as he said today, 0.3 could be the difference in $100,000 and $300,000. Again, that's taxpayer money. So for me, to be good stewards of finances, we have to spend money to save money, because we are all in this together. Now, the only conversation being left out here is the Board of Education, but that's okay. This is our debt. They're reaping the rewards, and you're not.
Right.
So I feel like it's our personal responsibility to offset this debt.
And I think I'm sorry, I was just gonna talk about the reserve. I think you told me we are about 43% now. You used to get an audit hit if you had over 15%. I don't know that they do that but you're way more than the auditors want you to have, because you're basically stockpiling taxpayer money, and that needs to be put to taxpayer use.
43% of what budget, or?
43% of the total board commissioner budget, yeah.
And if I believe correctly, the general government accounting principles is to hold a 20-25% reserve.
Yeah, 25. 25. Which we would still meet.
Which is, again, and I'm gonna be on my soapbox for a minute, but
Please do.
part of it, I mean, again, having a healthy cash reserve puts us in a better position, so when we have these floods and we can replace culverts and really react to community needs and things like that, which is dire and important, where you don't have to borrow money in the future. The balance of that is as a protectionary measure against people that would sit in our chairs that would want to stockpile money to do things, whether indirectly or directly, for general purposes, whatever they want to do. It's a protectionary measure for the public, and it's all about trying to, lack of a better term, force good government decisions.
Would that also be, also in regards to that, should, for whatever reason, the grant fall through where we matched with $2 million to that, at the end of the day, the IDA is not going to just get to keep $2 million there. If the grant doesn't come through, it's coming back to us, so at the end of the day, it's a wash in that direction too.
Well, one thing, just to that point, I think we'd want to look at, there are a couple of projects on that list, particularly like tying in the feed mill. Some of those significant enhancements, we would hope, again, if the grant money's off the table and that's not done, we would come back to you as a separate proposal, hey, look, these are real significant improvements that we'd like you to fund with those.
In today's meeting, I played devil's advocate. I said, okay, because I do think we are going in the right direction, but from protecting the Board of Commissioners, that could be in the near future, 4 years, they may change seats, and/or the IDA changes seats, that we would stipulate into the intergovernmental agreement that we will not just give a blank check over. This check will be written, and we've all been there. We've had bad boards, they've had bad boards, and we know that it could potentially, we want to alleviate the illusion of you're getting $1 million, please put it towards that, but this way we know it's going towards it because we approved it, and it has no choice. And that way there's nobody can come back and say, I can't believe you give those guys $1 million, they're going to go and invest it and try to get more money. No, the money's going directly towards the debt services.
Well, that's one of the reasons that we're trying to line item out, hey, pay off this. It's very quantifiable for y'all, it's quantifiable for us, it's quantifiable for every taxpayer. Is it the best decision financially and holistically to pay off these individual notes? Maybe not, and there's a lot of other ways to look at it. The 2018 bonds that we did had a 10-year call period. That's our highest cost money if we're really looking at the debt overall that IDA has. financially, it might make more sense to nest egg some money at the IDA so that in 2028, when we start calling some of those bonds, we can pay off some of that debt. But again, there's a lot of abstract, there's a lot of elections between now and 2028, so even though that might be the best financial decision, this is a great close second, and it's a lot easier to quantify for everybody involved, including the taxpayer.
You win more ball games getting base hits than you do swinging.
That's right. So again, if this was our business and we were looking at it individually, we'd probably play the long game, but I don't think, given the political factor, I don't think we can afford to play the long game. Let's take the win that we've got today, and again, we hope there'll be a partnership to allow us to do that.
We have set the stage, this board and this IDA board has set the stage in our last meeting, first ever, roundtable with the January 6th, second ever roundtable coming up, knowing that everybody will be working hand in hand, back and forth. No more IDA calls the shots. The Board of Commissioners does have input, and it's honestly because you guys care enough to give them input and oversight. And with that being said, the problem in 2001 was no oversight. That's why we have this problem today.
That's right.
With oversight, you won't be back in this position. And as long as people keep electing people like this.
Well, like I think I made the comment in the first meeting I presented here when we had the first list of 10, kind of the kickoff for that grant process. We all committed to a $2.5 million match. To my knowledge, in the history that I've been able to find on IDA, that's the first time the county has ever infused funds into the infrastructure in the county. The BOC has ever fused funds into the infrastructure. It's always been through a debt vehicle before that. And that's a huge step for our county moving forward to, just for that coming from you guys. So again, we don't take lightly that ask or this one, but it's amazing what we really are accomplishing in terms of our balance sheet moving forward. So.
And I know Zach appreciates it, because you've seen those cloudy days and those really dark days. Nobody, I don't think in this room, could say that this board, your board, and several others are committed to not doing the right thing in the future. I think that's why we do get, not necessarily a standing ovation, but we got applause and a bunch of woo-hoos when we went through the parade the other day. There wasn't nobody throwing candy back at us, I promise. And I saw that in the past. A couple of them had to duck.
There weren't no eggs.
Yeah.
So again, if we're talking, if the question is, what do you need, what do we need from you, we'd love consideration budgetary-wise to pay off one or both of those line item A or C on that schedule. So, again, whichever mix of that it is and how you decide to do it, that'll determine how we look to refinance the $4.7 million GPA note. And again, that's more of a timing thing. We wrapped up the project on Highway 106, and we'll basically be closing that note out. And if we do the refinance, we'll immediately be paying it off and refinance it through the bond. But again, the opportunity on the front end to, if you had a mortgage on your house and in year 2 you had the opportunity to drop a half a point, most people are going to do that. So,
well, I asked Mr. Tritt today to run those numbers on the remaining balance. And he said he would. His time was a little restrained today because he didn't get out of here at about 2 o'clock, and he wasn't going to be able to have them prepared for us by 6. But over the next few days, I'm assuming we'll have from Mr. Tritt a graph that shows the breakdown in the amortization scale of payback with rates.
One of the things that he's offering his services and going through all the legwork and things to do this based on the current interest rates and where we are. If interest rates turn around and go the wrong direction for us, there's no obligation, no cost for either the Board of Commissioners or the IDA in doing that work. And that's where, for me, it's kind of like I could save a couple $100,000 in interest costs. Why wouldn't I? That was the first thing when we talked was, let's get moving.
Well, that's probably important to mention, though. I mean, let's play devil's advocate again. Worst case scenario, rates climb back up, in January, and it's not appealing to go through the refinance process, and we continue to carry that 4.7 through GFA. Still, that wouldn't change our request from you to help get some of this other debt off of us.
Correct. And just for people at home that's going to be reading the newspaper, you know, at some point, before anybody does a home refi, the first thing he says is, okay, how much am I gonna save and how much is it gonna cost to get it done? Well, as of right now, we'll stand on the good to about 260 plus. So obviously, if my house is at 5% and I can get 2.5, it's worth that. You pass that margin of refinance, it's time to do it. Yes, sir.
And just a question on this, obviously, we're in the spirit of trying to look ahead. You were talking about before, we're addressing a shortfall in funding. At this time, is there the way to be able to look at where the money that is coming in for the future and how that's is some of that gonna be redirected to pay down the future debt, that $4.7 million as well?
Exactly. That's exactly how it's gonna come in to be paid down. And because this board inevitably is over that board, at any point in time, if this board questions that finance as to how much are you putting towards that versus how much are you leaving setting in a savings account, they would produce that document, whether it be a monthly statement, quarterly statement, or yearly statement. And we could see that money, because that's our job to oversee that.
I don't know if you're, is a member of our boards, you know, that's the liaison as far as information passing.
Yeah.
Back and forth.
But
it's a valid question, it really is, because in the past, you would want to know that.
You made a comment in regards to the Board of Education is seeing a return off of something that they haven't contributed to necessarily. Is that something that can be tweaked to take some of that and put towards the reduction, or is that set in stone?
I believe that's called a pilot program, that should the IDA be placed in a position where they have to incur a $4.7 million debt again, that through their board making the determination that they would approach the Board of Commissioners, ask for a pilot program so that prior to the tax dollars being directed in any other direction, the debt would be satisfied first.
Just for the public, pilot is payment in lieu of taxes.
Yes.
And it's an agreement that gets set up to,
And that
here's
could
what
have
we're
been
gonna
done
do
with
with that
the
debt.
program for GRP, you know, if we had an industry wanting to move in, you know, there's lots of ways for the IDA to structure, you know, investment that we have to make into the community, but, you know, obviously, we want to do our jobs and grow the digest so that the Board of Commissioners and so the Board of Education does reap those benefits, but at the same time, unfortunately, the way it's set up now is there's never been a mechanism to assist in the funding of the debt or the repayment of the debt.
So this is just a one-time repayment that we're talking about here to lower that?
That's correct.
Yes.
But there's not another vehicle on top of it or something else to?
Well, the only mechanism would be, and again, there's an agreement between the Board of Commissioners and IDA now for us managing the water and sewer system, so that's effectively what we'll be doing, is creating a payment this year for us to do that. You know, that's something that could be renewed annually if their board desired to, but again, their basis could change here, so, you know.
But to answer your question, there is another means to do it, which would be to add, the IDA has the ability, should they choose to go that way, to add another mill to our tax levy for the county, which in turn would generate, in round numbers, $832,000. Now, the issue with that is so many of our taxpayers are in the position to say, why am I paying for that?
That's right.
You know, because we still have a lot of work to do, you know, and that's through no one's fault. Here we're satisfying two things. One, to bring our reserve level into compliance where it should be anyway. If not, I think it's called a rollback that we're going to be faced with. Or we can help the IDA so that they can continue to do the work that they were charged with in our 2001 agreement. And which frees them up with some monies and the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a win-win for the county, for the commissioners, and for the IDA.
And you know, and I want to make a point for this, and I think I speak for the rest of the board. What has happened before is that the county, the BOC, and the IDA have looked at as not being one entity. I mean, we're two separate things of the same entity, because if we talk about levying, if they come up and they can levy a 2% tax instead of the 1%, that's 1%, but where does that come from? It comes from taxpayers, and it's the same as if the board
Levied that.
levied the tax. So, we're trying to work together to solve the issue, and I think that is one of the big changes that is being made that hasn't really been done in the past. We're sitting here talking about these and having real good conversations about how we can reduce the debt, and yet not increase the burden on the taxpayers out there. So, I think that's the important thing, and as long as the citizens of Madison County keep, you know, and I'm speaking for myself, it keeps the boards and keeps the sort of their focus on who they elect, that those folks have that same kind of mind, then I think we can move forward and do exactly what you're talking about. We, you know, not just have 1 year of doing this, but several years of where we keep this up, and it just becomes the common practice that's the way we approach everything. And I think that after our discussions, and a lot of people weren't there at the meeting, the public meeting, I think we made that pretty clear that that was the object of all of us getting together.
Yeah, we are definitely not seeking fault in any past groupings or decisions made. What we're trying to do now is provide the IDA with a means to move forward with what the vision was for the IDA initially. And you know, Josh and Frank and I had a conversation about this, that, you know, if you were asking me to invest my money in the IDA, I would be hesitant to do that. Given the opportunity that we have here, though, it would make that investment much more attractive. I mean, you know.
Well, I think my counter to you on that is, you know, we're asking you to pay rent on the house you've been living in.
That's it.
But, you know, back to that point of moving forward, really the only thing that ties our hands, you know, let's assume you pay off the two GFA notes that we have and we refinance the 4.7. Really the means then to attack debt is that there are, anytime you do a bond, you know, there's call windows on those, and just like I mentioned on the bonds we did in 2018, there was a 10-year limitation where you couldn't call those bonds. So our first opportunity to attack that debt would be in 2028. There'll be similar limitations on, and we'll have options based on how the scenarios look, but, you know, whether we do a 5, 10, or 20-year limitation on the ability to call the $4.7 million refinance. But again, you know, as you look at that, we're talking about financing money so cheap, you know, why would you ever want to refinance it again? So, you know, we'll probably still do something similar, like a 10-year window, because that's kind of the middle ground on the savings and opportunity there. But that would be my hope, is 2028, if we've collectively been able to set aside some funds, that's the debt I would like to go after next.
Well,
You know, assuming status quo, nothing changes, nothing else big comes into the picture.
There's not one taxpayer in this county that don't want lower taxes. The only way to get lower taxes is business. The only way to get business is infrastructure, and infrastructure ain't free. So we spend it now, we spend it correctly now, we make that investment, then we can reap that reward, which every taxpayer reaps also. Because I'm one of those guys, I pay taxes just like everybody else. And I would love to see my taxes go down. But first you gotta get out of the gate, and we're coming out of the gate. Yes, Miss Virginia?
How much help do we get on the DCA?
As much as we could really ask for. Why?
Okay, just asking.
One of the things that, in case you didn't see, our chairman's picture on the front cover of the paper said holding a $500,000 check for one of the projects that we're doing through the Community Development Block Grant. That was
the venture about the DCA.
Yeah.
So that's DCA is the thing there, and quite honestly, in the, you know, when we talk about doing the program that we did to do the water line expansion up Highway 72, DCA put $1.5 million into that project through the Appalachian Region Commission, which is quite honestly unheard of, but They had some good friends down at the Capitol.
Well, that 4.7, that was actually, basically spent 6.2 million in improvements in the county. 4.7 was the
The only thing, people that know me, and my thought process is I'm very tight with my money. But I spend money to make money. And that's the ultimate goal here. So if we're spending money to save money. So instead of making it. Gentlemen, thank you. This is going to be a notion for the 20th, is that correct?
No,
We need, do they need to take any action?
well, it's not, I don't think we need a vote tonight, but we do need a pretty firm consensus from the BOC, to make this work time-wise, because the goal is to strike while the iron's hot with these low interest rates. So if the BOC is prepared to say, we're good with using reserves to pay off both, those smaller notes, A and C, and then it's just a technicality. The other thing you'd have to do, with a vote probably in the first week of January, is to guarantee the bonds, the refinancing bonds for the 4.7. The county's already a guarantor on the chief note anyway, so it's no additional liability.
Yeah, make that clear, because the public don't want to know that part. We're already on the hook. So it ain't like we're going any further on the hook, we're already on the hook.
But yeah, if the BOC is comfortable with that, then Andrew will get out, term sheets and get bids, probably make those due the first business day of January or thereabouts, lock in the interest rate then. Again, if you're gonna meet on the 3rd instead of the 10th, you'll probably end up having to do a call meeting sometime during that first week of January to accept, the bid rate, approve the paperwork, and, then we'll be refinanced and done.
Any questions?
Y'all might want a meeting on January 6th.
Yeah, you got a joint meeting scheduled.
Oh, that'd be perfect. Okay, that's perfect. We do it then.
There's a plan.
There you go.
So can we add that to their January 6th agenda?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, part of the conversation, and I'm on board with what I would consider, a one-time payment, I think the dollar amount, whether it's A or A and C. The only thing I guess I'd bring to my recommendation would be, for my colleagues to consider, would be to, let's knock out the first one, the highest interest rate, the 780. That puts us in play. There's a couple things in my mind. It allows them, when I say them, it allows IDA, because what I think is missing from part of this conversation is not just, yes, we're contracting on them to do water and sewer, but the other task that they have not really been able to do that we want them to do is really generate those leads, whether it's buying property so we can turn some new businesses, doing those things that traditionally that business development authorities usually do. And so by applying and maybe attacking one of these outright, moving it out of the ledger, the annual payment at $62,000 either allows them to, bank some infrastructure money, land asset money or something else that could do something like that, or you could roll that extra payment into the next loan to move that forward. And the reason I bring those out for consideration is, even though we have a healthy reserve balance right now, and that helps them and it starts attacking some of the debt and gives them either some flexibility and some operating room to, again, for infrastructure improvements and or additional debt reduction. Some of the other things that's been talked about collectively from the community, and I'm not trying to push money in any of these projects, but I'm just bringing them up for discussion. Some of the community have been presented with the rec building. There's some additional monies there probably. We've been asked to participate, whether formally or informally, schools doing the ag building or whatnot. So, I still have a pension. This is just for me. I still think the old courthouse is an asset and that we need to do something there. So there's a lot of places that you can spend money. Old Presbyterian Church. We've talked about the EMS building that needs to do. I know we've got some SPOS money there, but construction costs are already out through the roof. So if we're going to push that, even though some of the basic money is there from the original SPOS, probably needs to be supplemented sooner or later. We talked about the Comer EMS station, sooner or later, that's gonna need some additional funding and whatnot to put that through to construction. So, I say those to say, I wanna help and I wanna attack, I think we're on the right approach. I think knocking out, you know, my opinion, you know, it's the highest debt off the two that we're talking about, and it's the highest interest rate. And then it gives, I think, you know, reduces that $5,200 a month payment to attack additional debt that's on the books and relieve some of that debt, and or give them some operating capital to look at the other side of the ledger from what we've asked IDA to do, not just in the water and sewer.
Y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but so the savings have to be redirected to the payments on the bond for at least the first 2 or 3 years, because one of the technicalities we hadn't discussed that Andrew told us about today is to get your best interest rate with your maximized savings, which are the numbers we're talking about, you have to hit the benchmark of having 50% of the principal paid by the halfway point of the loan. And the only way to do that is, you know how amortization tables work. You don't normally pay the principal up front. So to make that work, they got to front load some of the payments, which means, I mean, the assumption behind these numbers was the hope that they could pay off both of these loans and put both of those payments to covering that front end debt for 2 or 3 years. Now then there would be money available like you're talking about after that point.
And one reason we tried to think about that in a 3-year term is, you know, in all honesty, we don't know what could happen here 4 years from now, when this board may look completely different.
2 years from now.
But that would put us in a position, if these were gone, we know we can fund that 3-year commitment on the front end of that bond. And then hopefully in year 4, again, that frees up the money to do things like Derek's talking about internally for us.
Now, Derek, I had a plan B, and that would be, like you, take off the highest number, the highest interest rate number, and then potentially do $500,000 the second year and the other $500,000 the third year, until that second line C was abolished, which would take you 3 years. Again, that would probably be a better question for Mr. Tripp to see if Plan B would work.
Yeah.
But inevitably in 3 years, it would free up enough money to where on your 4th year, when you do come time to make that payment, you would have money to be able to do it with, because then you'd have the $127,000.
And of course, you look at what your money in the bank is earning today, and if you pay the debt off here, all the taxpayers benefit by the savings, because it's all taxpayer debt. However, you look at your constituents, we look at our constituents, I don't think there's any difference.
So the reason I said Plan B, Derek, was just because that way you still do have that cushion on that second and third year by doing $500,000 and only coming out of pocket with one up front. So it's a little less than one, but
I don't think.
Well, if it's a commitment within the next 36 months, to me, it's a commitment now. I just, again, that had not contemplated the financing aspect of it needing, I'm gonna say, the down payment at the 1.5 versus the 800,000. And that's kind of.
Basically, we're trying to throw an extra $150,000 a year is what it works out to, on top of the normal payment back into the principal. So you see those two notes there, which that get you 128, or 126, so we'll still have, some money to come up with on our own from our operations to get to that $150,000 balance that we're gonna attack that bond principal with on those first 3 years. So again, that's kind of why I posed it. This is y'all's decision, but it certainly determines how we move forward with the refinance. So that's just information we'll need to know, like, whether to take action or not tonight is fine, but we need to know which way you're leaning, because that's gonna tell us the instructions to give the budget stipend.
My question is the same as what you said, Todd. I mean, if we only pay off the $700,000, financially, does that really, how much does that really buy us, what I'm saying?
$62,000.
Well, that's what I'm saying, 62 is what we get, but I mean, as far as talking with,
oh yeah, interest and all, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is that gonna make sense for him to put that through? Is that, I mean, you know, we're talking.
I think the deal still works, but you haven't got as much savings as you
You
could.
don't have as much.
You lose some of your savings.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that's what I'm
Instead of getting 260 in savings,
financially.
you might get 220.
Yeah.
The different, again, go back to my analogy or my thought process is the down payment of $780 versus 1.5. To get all this, to get to where we want to do, we still have 2 or 3 year window of commitment that we've got to hit.
Either way.
On other projects. What does the, again, I'm asking because I haven't run y'all's numbers, but if you did the 780 or if you did the 1.5, what does that get your reserve ratio down? I mean, are we even getting close to that, or you still got other monies that you're having to spend to?
I'd have to ask Kathy.
If you, I mean, just kicking around with my calculator here, to answer Derek's question, these are numbers by a plumber with a cell phone.
You need to print that.
If we were to do the 1.5 for the IDA, and if our target was the 27% of what our annual budget is, in regards to the other projects that we've identified and all of us would like to pursue, there's still just under $1.7 million before we get to the 27, get to that number, so that we still have some monies out there that we could allocate towards other projects that, you know.
Again, and
But, yeah, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but we need to catch a look at that too, because when we start putting that in there into the budget, that changes the budget and that changes the percent that we got hold in reserve, right?
no, I mean, because this would just be.
No, if we go in here and start with these other projects, what I'm saying is anytime we add something to the budget.
It would amend in the next year, which would inevitably come out of the initial pool of reserve.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you change.
27% of a bigger number is a bigger number.
That's right. That's because when you add
Sure,
it, because it's part of the budget, all of a sudden the 1.5 that we give there is.
But I don't know how y'all's budget is. Does the budget take into account the amount you're putting into reserves, or is it only looking at what you're spending?
Well, that's what I'm.
Your reserve is generally based on your revenue.
Correct.
Yeah. Reserve's just the bank balance. If you take it at the same day every
So
year.
it's not gonna change that.
No, right. Just because you add more money to your budget doesn't move the reserve target.
No.
Because that's based on revenue. With that said, and with the understanding that, you know, that, I'm gonna use bond counsel or not bond counsel, but bond agent, we'll call it for like terminology. Understanding that the target number really needs to be hit within that amortization schedule. I'm in Denny's plumbing math over there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I'd rather invest in Denny's business than there.
I have 2 sets of books.
Never mind.
I can support a one-time budget allotment of loan A and C here as it's presented to the ID for the purpose of the debt retirement.
So consensus is, it's doable. We have to have a vote, but the consensus is it's doable. That's what you were looking for.
That's what Mike needs to get back to.
Yeah, that's what I mean, that's what he'll put out. That's what he'll use as his assumptions to go out and.
No,
I don't think we vote, but I mean, is it a consensus? I mean, is everybody agreeing to that?
do we think we're on the right track is what you gotta,
Well,
sort of nod on.
it's pretty plain to me, does everybody sort of agree that the 1.5, looking at that, is the correct thing?
I think we're on the right track. There's a lot of, and I've been listing a lot of questions here that I want to ask, and I didn't want to throw it out here because I don't want to change the tone of the conversation here, but I think there's additional questions you want to ask, and there's there's some more scenarios that I'd like to see some figures on. If we go down this way, I wanna know what the ultimate best ideal, the plan where we stand to gain the most from. I mean, I wanna have, and I've listed 5 different scenarios. We wanna talk about 3. I've listed 5 different ones. So I wanna see the bottom line on every one of those and see what those possibilities are. Yeah, I mean, the conversation, I think, is right where we wanna be. I think there's more needs to be added to it, but
So with that, makes perfect sense to say the consensus is to move forward, but he wants an answer to those questions, which we were confirming by saying probably tomorrow he will have those different scenarios laid out in hard numbers with hard figures at the bottom. The only thing that's adjustable is the interest rate, because we don't know if it's going to be up or down a little bit, but that should work.
Yeah, and if you can send me those questions, we can, I'll be, and anybody else, I'll be glad to pass those on to Andrew. He can run different scenarios, and, you know, I think he's aiming at getting the term sheet out probably, you know, no earlier than Friday, best case scenario. So we got time to do some back and forth and get you some more input. Okay.
Or a conference call. I mean, Andrew's just in Atlanta. If he needs to come back up, I'm sure he will. And that might be better than 2 days worth of emails, is to have him come back to meet with whichever ones have the most questions. I've sort of heard the spiel today, but Terry hasn't. Derek hasn't. You know, Brian.
And just for conversation's sake, you know, his ideal scenario was to, let's don't pay off anything, refinancing him, because obviously.
Yeah, he's gathering interest,
Yeah, he's gathering interest, so again, that didn't make sense for us.
Right.
You know, again, trying to do what's holistically best for the county,
Well, it's a really great rate.
Well, I say the rate didn't change. I mean, obviously your cost number, your savings number gets bigger just because you're talking about, you know, throwing more debt into the pie. But, you know, if we're paying off that today, you know, what we're not accounting for is, you know, we're talking about the $62,000, $64,000 in payment savings, but that's not including the interest that you're saving over the life of the remaining life of that note. And again, I don't have that number calculated.
That's the number that I have to see.
What we're aiming for is to have everybody comfortable this week, I guess by the end of this week when he puts the term sheet out, because the worst case scenario is we don't want him to go out and have all these lenders bid, bring it to you on January the 6th, and then there's still questions and it fails. And we've missed the low interest rate opportunity to do it at all.
For some reason, Terry, I'm thinking it was almost 80 to 110, somewhere 80 to 110 on each one of those, that 713 and the 703 or whatever it was. So it was about a $200,000 savings between the two by just abolishing them over the long term. It may have been $160,000 worth of savings, but I know it was one of those two.
I didn't look at the schedules on that too. So.
Over what period of time? If that's,
so again,
that's $200,000 over 20 years, that's not too big of a deal.
One of those notes matures in about 2038, and the other matures a little earlier, 2034, something like that. So, and again, I don't have them right here, but, you know, so we're saving, you know, 15 years of interest.
That's $780,000.
That's the key thing to me, is bringing the things shorter.
That $780,000 that is principal on that first note. So you're paying $18,000 a year interest right now for the 2.31%.
Right.
So
you probably calculated that off the total.
Just to stress.
You better use that plumber's phone.
That's just 1 year, and that's going to decrease as your principal goes down. But you know, that's what 2.31% times.
Well, and how deep do you want to get in the weeds? You know, we're going to compare that to the, I don't know what rate you're getting on your money that you have sitting in the bank, but you know.
It ain't 2.31%.
So again, you know, that's a immediate savings on.
Well, on a 10-year note,
money you're not making any interest on now. So.
When they quote their term, will it be a locked-in rate at that time, so we could get it Friday?
No, he'll just go out. He's just putting it out to the market on Friday, so they'll be coming in first week of January.
Yeah, we've got to let him know, hey, we want to issue this dollar value of bonds.
I just wonder when you could actually lock it.
Probably first week of January.
Technically, officially it wouldn't be locked until that January 6th meeting when we accept it, but they'll get the bids and hopefully don't change between Monday and Thursday.
So it could change from their bid to when you accept it.
When you do a bond validation.
Yeah, but that doesn't affect the lock-in.
And again, what we're getting the ball rolling it may come back January sixth, rates have gone through the roof, and, hey,
They won't do anything.
then it's a roof,
It's
Yeah.
like the mortgage market, once they quote you, it's
Well,
locked for
actually
so
won't be a
many
viewpoint.
Right.
months,
Right.
days.
Yeah, they don't do that.
They don't do that for me.
Right.
Okay.
Cause it's changing hourly. Basically, this is trending close to like the treasury rate, so.
All right, so with that, he's already got his 5 compiled. Compile any more questions? And another one, 6 compiled. Compile your notes, get them over to Mike. Let's try to get some answers on this quickly. But I do feel this board is prepared to move forward. And that's how I'm gonna say that.
If I display it.
I'm curious, now you got me wondering. All right,
If you've got time after, we can visit those and maybe
See you after class.
formulate the questions. Maybe formulate the questions for Mike, so that we make sure we get the right information.
all right, executive session to discuss real estate acquisition, personal matters, or potential litigations.
No, sir.
Thank you. That part. We are in adjournment. That might be the longest.
Frank, we spoke on the phone, I'm Frank.
Oh, yeah.
Nice to
I got
meet you.
two kids.
You know, thank you.
I've learned from
Frank,
you.
good job.
Oh, that's nice.
Frank, how you?
Legally, they say that you can't do it because it can't be an education.
Let me have a pen back, Josh, I know how you are.
Almost got away with it.
One of the things I always do.
That's right.
We'll run the little boys, okay.
Correct.
Pretty good
Correct.
plumbing
It's the same
back there.
provision. Well, it's the same provision in Georgia Constitution that says educational, taxpayer dollars can only be used for educational purposes.
I just,
All they-
one of the things,
There's the DeKalb County.
I want to make darn sure somebody else says, oh, do this, and no, you just got redistricted out of your district. Answer for what?
That guy.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we brought-